We got to check in the group to make sure. The Meditation Magazine, MedMag Summits, the group called MedMag Summits. And it should be streaming in a second.
We're there.
Okay. Okay, awesome. We're live with the Awakening Summit in the Meditation Magazine Summits Facebook group, streaming directly to you. I'm Kevin Ellerton, here with co-host. Hey, Dr. Kim.
Hi,
how are you
Kevin.
doing? Okay, awesome. And Veronica is going to be supporting us on technology stuff, making sure that everything's working correctly. If anybody has any trouble who's watching this, if anybody has any technology issues, something's not working, maybe there's an echo, whatever it is, please let us know in the comments on the video. Also, please note that you can comment on the video if you have any questions for any of the speakers that are speaking today. Okay. And so I'm excited to get this started. I want to, I guess, just introduce myself really quickly and have Dr. Kim introduce herself. I'm Kevin Ellerton. I'm the founder of Meditation Magazine and the author of A Practical Guide to Spiritual Awakening. And we are doing the Awakening issue, which is coming out soon. And this summit, we're going to be interviewing 7 really amazing people who have gone through spiritual awakenings, and some people who are going to sort of break it down and analyze what is spiritual awakening and how can we experience or catalyze that. And Dr. Kim, you want to introduce yourself?
I would love to. I would like to first start out by saying welcome, everyone. It is so amazing to be here, to be connected to all of you. We're all around the country. I'm sure there's people around the world joining us. And just what a special moment. So I will introduce myself here in a second, but I want to acknowledge, Kevin, it is amazing to collaborate in this way. And I'm sure all of you may be wondering how we are sitting here together. And it was just a few months ago where we came together and we knew we had to do something really special to bring like-minded, connected, to bring positive into the world. And that is exactly why we're here right now. So I'm very grateful for this. So a bit about who I am and why I'm sitting here. I am Dr. Janelle Kim. I'm a 9th generation herbologist, doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, practitioner of martial arts, and practitioner of the Tao. And for those of you who do not know, the Tao is the universe. To me, that means connection to those around us, connection to nature and everything around us, and connection within ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. Ultimately, we will get into that in a little bit with Kevin after he introduces himself. But one of the main things that I always love to remind myself is that I do come from this lineage of ancestors, of great teachers, masters, doctors who dedicated their entire lives to understanding the human condition so that we can be here right now in a similar way that all of us are working towards to better understand ourselves so that we are able to balance with life. And I believe that we all will be discussing that on some way, how we balance with life, how we take challenges, and how we really can look from within to connect and to make life that much more calm and happy and peaceful. So, Kevin, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kim. So basically, as the founder of Meditation Magazine, I actually didn't just start this randomly. It started like from this whole journey that I've been on, which you could call like a spiritual awakening journey. When I was in, well, I mean, it starts really far back in childhood, but I got to skip all that because we got a lot of speakers. But when I was 19 years old, I was studying to be a rabbi in Jerusalem, and I had sort of like an existential crisis where I lost my faith in the religion, and I lost this meaning in life. Like I had no more meaning in life. I became kind of nihilistic, and then that developed into depression and anxiety, which was like a downward spiral. And then I found myself in college just taking a lot of psychedelics and going into this rabbit hole, and it was not good. It was a dark time. And someone introduced me to meditation, thankfully, and I realized that the thoughts in my head were just thoughts, and that I could actually step out of them and realize that, like, hey, there's more to life than just the thoughts. And there was this moment, actually, I remember in a bookstore where I picked up Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, and suddenly I just saw through that cloud of thoughts that was always there before. And suddenly it was just like, whoa, I'm in like this reality that I had not been in contact with before. And that was a very powerful moment. And it really felt like a waking up. And I didn't really think of it as an awakening at the time. I just didn't think about that word, but it did feel like that. And then I had a very similar experience later on in Thailand in a monastery where I was struggling against my thoughts in silent meditation. I was struggling against, I want to be happy. I want to have a calm mind. I don't want to be stressed out and anxious. And I was like for days in anxious and like in this meditation, but it was anxious. It was like I was trying to be calm. And then I just couldn't anymore. I just gave up on the idea that I was going to be calm and clear-minded. And I just gave up on that because I couldn't struggle anymore. I was too exhausted. And in that moment of just giving up and just accepting that this was reality, I had another one of those kind of moments where it was like, boom, like the thoughts I just saw through, it was past the thoughts and I was just here. And that also felt like waking up, but I still didn't really think of it as spiritual awakening. And it took a long time for me to start to realize from other people using those words that these were waking up kind of experiences. And I spent years traveling around the world interviewing gurus about their experiences of spiritual awakening and enlightenment. And that's what ended up turning into Meditation Magazine. So I'm always sort of fascinated by spiritual awakening and other people's experiences. And so we have a whole bunch of really great speakers today who are going to be talking about that. So Dr. Kim, do you want to just give like a quick introduction to the people who are going to be speaking and like a general idea of what the event is going to be?
Absolutely. I would love to do that. And I really appreciate you sharing the story. I think that's something that we are all going to find is how much every one of our stories is so unique. I have heard certainly from my mentors, and I'm sure many of us have heard from very spiritually awakened individuals, that if you look at it like a mountain, there's the top that we are all trying to reach. But we all have a path to get there and is our unique path. But ultimately, what I really wish to call out and what resonates to me and what certainly has been handed down in my lineage is that we are all human. And when we really understand this connection, and I see all of us already shaking our heads together because I feel it so much. When we recognize that we have this connection together, we have this connection to our lineage. And that does not necessarily mean that you have to come from 9 generations of movement and martial arts and Taoism. It means that we are connected, that before us, there were so many who came before us. And after us, God willing, we will have so many people to come after us. And so no matter where we are in the world, we are connected. We are never alone. We all walk through hardships. We all walk through happiness. And these are the ways that we are going to connect with that. And so, yes, without further ado, I'd like to introduce a bit about who we are going to speak to. And then Kevin, you still would like to go over some of the framework of the different types of awakening, because I think that would be amazing to maybe go over even before I introduce everyone. Does that sound good?
Why don't you introduce people and then I'll go over that framework if we have time, because I just want to make sure we stick to our timeline.
Yes, that sounds good. All right, then I will jump ahead in our timeline. So we will be broken down into 2 different panels. All right, and so the first panel is going to explore spiritual awakening as a personal journey. So we will hear stories of these incredible people who are at various points along their path, along their personal journey. And the second panel is going to explore specific kinds of spiritual awakening, which Kevin will go over, which he will discuss as present moment awakening, universal self awakening, as well as Kundalini, as well as near death. Okay. And of course, heart awakening. So it's very interesting to see these different ways of how we can all reach our path and how it all really does come from the same root. So when we are in that second panel, we are going to be asking 5 very important questions that I think it's really important for all of us to kind of have in our mind, whether we are a speaker or whether we are just observing and absorbing, hopefully, all that is being shared today. The first question is, what is awakening? What does awakening feel like is the second question. The third one is, how can you awaken? The fourth is, who is the you that awakens? And finally, why is it important to us? Why are we all on the summit? Why do we care so much? Why have many of us committed our time and our life to understanding and going on that path of awakening? Okay, so first, on the first panel, we are going to be introducing Crispy. She's an amazing, amazing individual. I'll tell you a little bit more about her when it is her time to share. But in short, she's a very popular beauty influencer who gained 5 million followers on YouTube and social media. She recently had a near-death experience, and she is now on her journey of self-awakening. One of the things that I have to mention is that it is really beautiful and authentic to hear her story. And one of the biggest takeaways that I received, and what I'm sure you will see as well, is that true fulfillment, happiness, and purpose comes from inside. Then we will be speaking to Stephanie Martinez James. She calls herself the spiritual Latina. I love that. She is also a popular YouTuber who discusses spiritual awakening and ayahuasca, as well as connecting deeper to your true self. She also just gave birth, so congratulations, Stephanie. That is an amazing part of the spiritual journey. We have Charlene Lizette. She is a spiritual teacher and YouTuber who, after much resistance and many years of believing she was not enough, took a leap of faith, answered the call from the universe, and followed her dreams. And now she inspires and empowers women all over the world to heal so they may find their own voice, flourish, and connect with their limitless potential and power. Tara Schollenberg. She is a Kundalini instructor and astrologer, amazing one at that, if I may say so, in my humble opinion. And she is the co-founder of Elevate the Globe and Intune, which again, I will share a little bit more about when it is her time to share. And she has a very deep passion for transformative meditation, mental health, and wellness, which has placed her as a next generation thought leader in the wellness space. Then we will move into panel 2. And each one of these panels is going to be about an hour, and we're going to have a little break in between. So just be aware of that. So panel 2, Kevin will take over there. And we will be speaking to Mimi Lee, who is a popular meditation trainer for Meditation Magazine's MTT 200. Of course, I have a special place in my heart for this. As one of the teachers, Kevin has done an amazing job putting together this program. She is a top featured teacher and mentor of one of the world's leading meditation apps, Insight Timer, with a community of over 18 million users. And she's now in partnership with multiple startup wellness and meditation apps, including Relaxo, Meditation, JoyScore, and Mood VR. We will then speak to Jue Miao Miao Ming. He is a spiritual leader of the Heart Chan in the United States. He is a global spiritual, a global spiritual organization that shares the ancient teachings and practice of Chan meditation, something that very much resonates with myself. And finally, we will speak to Dr. Svoboda, Robert Svoboda. He is the author of 12 books, including Agora series and Kundalini. He speaks prolifically on karma, which is a very, very important topic. And he is the first ever Westerner to graduate from a college of Ayurveda and be licensed to practice Ayurveda in India. So I thought that was a pretty neat call out. So Kevin, maybe now you can go into a bit more as I began sharing about the different forms of meditation, if you will, different categories, if we could possibly break them down.
Yes, thank you. So, okay, I'm not sure am I showing up on the spotlight here? Okay, I guess I'll spotlight myself. So, yes, basically there are a lot of different kinds of awakenings that people go through, and there's this sort of idea that there are many paths up the mountain, and they all lead to the same peak. I actually made a documentary series called Paths Up the Mountain, which you can find on YouTube, where I interviewed all these gurus about their types of awakening. I think that there are some kinds of awakening. There's like 4 kinds of awakening that people generally talk about. One is waking up into the present moment, so seeing through the thoughts and into the present moment. The second is the dissolution of the ego and being one with the universe. That's we call like a self type, like a identity type of awakening. Then there's like a heart awakening to love and service. And then there's Kundalini awakening, which is sort of that energetic awakening of the Kundalini energy. So those are like the 4 types that people often talk about. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in people's stories. And then there are others, like also birth and death can be seen as awakening in certain ways. And I know Stephanie, one of our speakers for the first panel, recently had a baby, and there is a really powerful kind of identity shift and consciousness shift in becoming a mother, or even becoming a baby, just like being born. So I think that there's a lot of different specific kinds of awakening, but what we're gonna start with in the first panel is talking about the awakening journey, which is sort of this sort of lifelong thing that people go through. Usually it starts with some kind of suffering or dark times or some kind of really intense experience that causes us to go on a search for meaning and looking for something deeper. And we explore things within the spiritual realm, and this ends up changing our experience of life and also our life path. So, and these, the four types of awakening that I talked about, often arise within that lifelong journey, and sometimes in different orders. So it's very interesting to see how that plays out. So we're going to go into that now with panel one, and we're going to have the four speakers for panel one talk about their journeys, and it's going to be really interesting, I think, to see how each person's journey is sort of different, but also sort of similar. And if you have any questions for any of the speakers, please comment them in the Facebook group under the live stream. You know, there's like the chat there, the comments, comment them there, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. Okay, so I guess Veronica, do you want to switch us into panel one? So I guess we can start with Crispy. Oh, actually, Dr. Kim, do you want to introduce Crispy?
I would love to. I have already obviously started introducing you to Crispy, but a little bit more about her is that she is an incredible artist and a very influential, well, social media influencer, right? Hence the name. So after earning her degree from UCLA in 2012, she began her career in social media, amassing a following of over 5 million followers globally. You know, that's not so small. So that's not easy work either. I know this, Crispy, but that is part of your story that you're going to share. And very important for our time here together today, she recently has embarked on a journey of self-discovery through mindfulness, meditation, and yoga, which was in fact sparked by one particular moment in your life. And I would love for you to go further into that, please, Crispy. Can't wait to hear.
Sure. So in June of 2021, I had a near-death experience. And that was sort of the catalyst that changed my perspective on life. During the near-death experience, I saw myself outside of my body. And first there was this fear of like, oh no, I'm in big trouble. What's going to happen? And then there was just this knowing that everything was going to be okay. And eventually too, like all the fears, like with every fear that would arise, there was this knowing that everything was going to be okay. And then eventually the last fear was like, oh, I'm not going back to my body or to my life at all. And that was okay too. And when I came out of the experience, I was like, you cannot talk about this. People are going to think that you're crazy. You need to deny this experience. And prior to the near-death experience, I was really struggling in life. I was really lost. And I was trying to be better, but everywhere that I was looking to be better was all concerned with the external. And so after this, I was even more confused. So I started to look up near-death experience videos on YouTube, and then I started to learn about the soul and the ego. And so finally I said to myself, what does my soul want? And I was like, I need to rest. And so I did, and I felt so much better. And what I realized is that whenever I wasn't working, I always felt guilty and ashamed because I'm self-employed. And when you do social media, there's always stuff that you can be doing. So finally, it was mentally relaxing. And then another big like epiphany that happened, it was the next day. I said, what do you want to do? What does my soul want? And I was like, I just want to clean my house and listen to music. And I did, and I had like the best day of my life, listening to the same songs that were on the same playlist for years, but I had this transformative experience with music. When I sat back and reflected, I realized that I was taking music for granted, that it was here all along for me. And that sort of transformed into realizing that I was taking my body for granted, myself for granted. I was punishing myself, like crash dieting in the gym, always trying to lose weight. And I didn't appreciate the fact that I had my health and my body was here working for me. And so that sort of shifted my perspective, and I started viewing things through the lens of gratitude, and that entailed accepting exactly where I was. And my life just started to transform. And because I had this new lens of gratitude, I forgave myself for everything, all those little things I was mad about, embarrassing moments. I forgave myself for all of that. And it was like I had a clean slate with myself. And then it kept like just transforming outward. And then for every grudge or little thing that I held against others, then I forgave everyone in my life. And then I was like, wait, what about the things I did when I was lost? Like maybe I had hurt people in my life. I had hurt people in my life. So I needed to make that right too. And so I apologized for the things that needed to be said. And most people said, you don't need to apologize. But there was a handful of people who said, you don't need to apologize, but I'm glad that you did. And we had this like brand new foundation, and all my relationships started to flourish. And then I really started learning about meditation, Eastern philosophy, and I started to see that I wasn't who I thought I was. I wasn't this person, this body, that I'm also consciousness. And all my definitions of self started to loosen. And I realized that I could inhabit roles lightly and more freely. And once I stopped judging myself, then I stopped judging others, and I could just appreciate each moment and each person for who they are. And I noticed that when I have less attachments around a situation for how it should be, that I allow for the possibilities of that moment to transform. So it's really exciting. And even at one point, I became attached to non-attachment because I thought I've discovered this amazing thing. I'm never going to be sad again. And then no, like life came. And then I realized that it's all part of my soul's curriculum, that I came here for this human birth as a gift to learn the lessons that I'm supposed to learn in this life. So I now look at things, extricating myself from whatever conflict is there and learning how is my soul going to evolve from this situation. And it's just so freeing. And I struggled with depression and anxiety my whole life. And since this change, I can say that my rebound time is much, much faster. I don't get wrapped up into my own melodrama as much. Yeah, so I would say now I'm in a place of practicing radical acceptance, which is a practice. Like I don't do any of this, perfectly, but life is so exciting and it's constantly evolving. And there are little awakenings all the time because it's a lifelong journey, I believe. And I see that near-death experience, although it was the darkest time of my life, it was also the best gift. So yeah, I'm just so thankful. Life is so exciting. I'm surfing the waves of life. And thank you for allowing me to share my story.
I love that, Crispy. What I hear you say, and I know that we all are going to resonate with this, is it's a naturalness, right? Like I want to call out because what we have learned definitely in Eastern philosophy of things, which is a human philosophy, it's just existed for so long, is where even listening to music, art, whatever it is that you can really connect your heart even for a few minutes. And once again, we're all shaking our heads. That is meditation. Sometimes in this world, we have seated meditation techniques, moving meditation techniques. Obviously, I'm a proponent of that. I teach that. But true meditation is that awareness of yourself, where you are, how you're feeling, acknowledging it, if you will, and then realizing the things in life that no matter what we do, we are in this present moment. And no matter, we always put our heart and mind into things. We always work hard, of course, that's part of the formula, right? But at the end of the day, there is something much greater than us. And I love to look at it. I'm very visual that here we are in this wavelength, this chi, if you will, of this universe. And I love to think of it as just plugging in, right? So we literally plug in and you just stay aware of being plugged in that way. And so I love that. Music in particular is something that, Tara, I imagine you would speak on this, and Charlene, and now I'm going to call out everyone, Stephanie, Crispy, you already said it, but music in particular does very much work with chi, sound healing. It works with our brain waves. It works with our meridian systems. It is a way to connect. It is a way to calm, as well as movement. So I really, really loved that. Crispy, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And who would I like to go to next? How do you even choose? Charlene, why don't we speak next? I'd love to go into a little bit more. And then the beautiful thing is that at the end, we're all going to have a discussion together. So don't forget to write in your questions right now, because at the end of this panel, it's something we can all discuss together. And it's not every day, we get to be together in this type of amazing group. to discuss these things. So Charlene Lizette is a spiritual teacher and empowerment coach who specializes in integrative teaching and coaching by implementing various spiritual modalities. Her mission is to empower women to transform their life after a catalyst experience by connecting to their spirituality and embodying self-love so they may unlock their dream life. Charlene focuses on cultivating compassion, love, empowerment, and happiness into the world by integrating her 2 signature alignment tools. I love that. I am all about the tools. The pillars of self and the 9 light laws for living a conscious life. So ultimately, she is a cosmic coach for those ready to align their life. And as I mentioned before, so that all of you know, she has a YouTube channel with over 8 million views to support those experiencing exactly what we were speaking about, spiritual awakening. So I'm so happy to meet you, Charlene. I very much resonate with, of course, your message and your story. And also I have to mention, I love the directness. You know, that's the thing. I'm a very, as much as I'm connected and I speak of the Tao and the universe, I also love the directness because that is the yin and yang. There's always the balance, but let's just say it as it is. And I see that you do that and I appreciate that. So please tell us a bit about yourself, Charlene, and your story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. So I don't know about you guys, but I love learning things the hard way. So I didn't have 1 spiritual awakening. I didn't have 2 spiritual awakenings. I had 3. And I'm assuming I'll possibly have a 4th, depending on how I choose to move forward in my life. So from a very young age, I knew that there was something different about me. I felt very isolated. I felt very hopeless and helpless in my life because I could see beyond the veil or beyond the realm. This means that I have the beautiful gift of being clairvoyant, clairsentient, having all the psychic senses activated. And to some, it's also considered a burden because it makes you very unique and very different. It's a very hard conversation to have when you're 15 or 16 to turn around and tell somebody, hey, I see dead people, or by the way, so-and-so has a message about you. So when I was about 15 or 16, feeling very lost around what to do with my gift, feeling overwhelmed with not understanding what it was, I was also prophesizing and seeing my parents get a divorce. And around that time, I ended up becoming very hopeless and helpless, feeling very lost, and similar to Kevin, spiraled into a depressive state and ended up trying to commit suicide. I failed. And I think that was a blessing from the universe looking back on it. I truly feel like it was a catalyst moment in my life where I had to experience that darkness, that depth of nothingness to start really tuning in and tapping into what it means to be a conscious, aware soul, a sentient being here on this earth. I ended up spending about a week in what's considered like a holding facility, or we would know it as a mental institution. And I ended up seeing a lot of people who, you know, were schizophrenic and had a lot of very difficult mental illnesses, far more than what I was experiencing. And it was in that time where I started to pull myself out from my own victimhood, my own narrative, my own suffering, and started seeing that everyone in this world is also going through their own experience, going through their own difficulty and challenges. And so once I was removed from, or once I was released, I should say, from that space where I spent 5 days, I made it a mission to really connect with what spirituality meant. I grew up Roman Catholic. For any of you that know or have understand what the Catholic world looks like, I'm still religious, I'm still a Catholic, but to turn around and try and talk to a priest about what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're going through from a spiritual perspective is very different when you're supposed to abide by the Old and New Testament. And so I spent a lot of my time, considering that I was a loner, I didn't have a lot of friends, I couldn't make friends very easily, in the bookstore. And if you were watching from Toronto or from Canada, you would know Chapters, which is now Indigo. I spent my late teens, early 20s in there, reading every book that I could possibly get a hold on in the esoteric New Age spirituality section. Those books became my best friend. I started learning about astrology. I started learning about the other side, Sylvia Brown. I started learning about premonitions, prophetic dreams, anything and everything to do with the esoteric, the occult. And the more that I wanted to dive into it, the more that the density of this 3D world would call me back in, right? It's a very hard conversation to have at a college party, to turn around and say, hey, so are you into spirituality and crystals? I mean, crystals now are all the rage and they're super cool, but well,
I was going to say, Charlene, now all of a sudden here we are, and that is the coolest thing.
Yeah.
20 years ago,
Yeah, well, 20 years ago, it wasn't so cool, right? 15 years ago, I was like a hippie weirdo. And I say that with all the love and kindness in the world. Because I embrace that title so much. So yeah, so I ended up getting absorbed back into the 3D world, right? The materialistic world. How can I show up and be cool and look cool and have the coolest outfits? And inside of me, there was a emptiness because I knew that that wasn't who I truly was. And so there went the masks that I would put on over and over again. But at the same time, while Charlene pretending to be cool, which we know now is the ego, right? Really showing up in the world, was out trying to become friendly or make friends or be cool or fit in or whatever it was. Authentic Charlene, true authentic Charlene in her highest expression was screaming, and my gifts and my abilities and my powers were getting stronger and stronger. And I will never forget the one night, I must have been in my early 20s, where I yelled out to the universe and God and whoever it is that you consider source consciousness. And I just said, I don't want this anymore. I hate it. I hate it. It's overwhelming. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. You keep showing me these snippets of these dreams, of these premonitions, but I don't know who I'm supposed to tell. I don't know when it's going to happen. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with all of this that's coming in. And that night I had atrocious nightmares. And within 6 months from that night, I ended up in a new career, a new job, I should say, where the party life was the cool life. And I don't know if I can say sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but I just said it. That was my life for the next few years. And I dived into the world of doing drugs, hard drugs, and partying, and being that cool it girl that knew all the club promoters and knew everybody that was an it person. And that was also a very dark moment in my life, because I realized that I was just trying to mask my gifts. I was trying to pretend that I wasn't here. It felt a lot easier to not be present. It felt a lot easier to pretend that I was somebody else. It felt a lot easier to consume whatever I could to mask away who I truly was and what I truly was. And when I was about 25, 26, I went to a party with friends. And one of the guys there kept hitting on me, and he kept telling me that we were going to end up sleeping together. And I kept telling him, no, we're not. I'm pretty fluid. It's not going to happen. And I know if I want to be with you, I know if I don't want to be with you. And well, one thing led to another, and I woke up to him finishing off. And once I came home and I washed him away and everything cleared itself off of my body, I realized that the trajectory I was on in my life was so self-destructive, all because I didn't love myself, all because I didn't know how to value myself. I didn't know my self-worth, and I didn't know how to honor and respect who I truly was. So I kept trying to fit into places where I didn't belong. And that led me on another spiritual awakening, another catalyst moment in my life. And I shared this with Kevin. I don't believe there are coincidences. I believe everything happens for a reason. And in that time, I was transitioning from that old career to a new career. And I ended up becoming friends with a Buddhist who lives out in Alberta. I'm in Ontario, so it's about 3 provinces away. He has passed on now. His name was Chando Silver, a gay Buddhist who was my guardian angel. I never met him. And to this day, every time that I talk about him, I get emotional, because that is the impact that that man had on me. He helped me to understand what my gifts were, what my abilities were. He helped me to understand what consciousness and awareness is, what this vast universe has to offer. He helped me to understand what it meant to step out of the self and really stay present and absorb and observe things as they are, rather than what I wanted them to be. And it was finally through having a mentor, a guide, literally a master on earth here, that I was finally able to tap into the world of spirituality and at its core, understanding consciousness, awareness, what it meant to embody love and be love, and to understand that the ego is always present, but it is when we understand that we at our highest expression are in control, not our ego, that we are able to really accept and embrace life as, you know, the curveballs come, or we ride the waves. But then, because I like to learn the hard way, I jumped right back into that 3D mindset, that 3D density that I call it, right? Because there's duality in everything. And I love that you said that, you know, there's light and darkness in all aspects, including this world. And at that time, I was feeling a lot of pressure focusing on this external societal constructs on what would make me be accepted or be valuable or be appreciated or be approved of by the world. And I fell into the trap of feeling like I needed to get married, have a kid, do all those things. And that is when I met my son's father, and the most beautiful gift ever came into my life, which is my son. My son is a blessing. It was another catalyst moment in my life, because not only was it the most beautiful moment in my life to watch him be born, to experience that birth, to carry him, to have him come into this world, to teach me all these things about myself, where I was unconsciously living, where I was operating from ego, from rage, from anger, hopelessness, helplessness, all these things. But he also helped me to see something so clearly. And that is that I had created a false reality for myself, simply so that I could try and fit into an environment, so that I could feel like I was accepted, so I could feel like I was normal. And that was when my third and final, so far, spiritual awakening came in, where I acknowledged that it was a false reality. I didn't want to be engaged. I didn't want to get married to this person. It was unfair to stay with him. It was unfair to pretend to play house with somebody, and that I couldn't teach my son that. I couldn't teach him that that was happiness and fulfillment, and that that is how you live a life of purity, of kindness to this world. And so I made the decision to let everything implode on itself. So single mom, unemployed, because I had become a stay-at-home mom at that time. I left my 6-figure income with a little babe, a German Shepherd puppy, a cat, and the world. And I finally started listening to my angels at that time. And that was when I was getting a lot of premonitions, a lot of downloads, what I call them, a lot of dreams that I needed to get on YouTube. And here we are today.
Oh, such a beautiful story. I mean, there's so many times where I know I'm not alone in this, where yes, you just feel that so deeply. I really appreciate you sharing all of that, Charlene. We all, once again, have such a unique journey in how we realize, that is another word for awakening that I resonate with for certain. What is the most important? And I do want to stick, it does not necessarily have to be a child. First, that is something in my life that has certainly been a spark for me, but I do find that it can be one of the greatest tools to have something in our life that can bring us out of. We need, as human beings, to have things in our life, to acknowledge what they are, that can bring us out of moments where we're in a tough position, in a challenge. And so I really appreciate that you have mentioned a few of those from your master, which of course I resonate with. One thing that I thought of that I wanted to just mention here for all of us is, yes, I speak of a lineage. And I imagine that when I say that's what I'm rooted in, what I come from, that you all might assume that it's a family, it's a bloodline. Now, of course, I have a blood lineage, but the truth is my lineage also comes from a series of different masters and teachers throughout centuries or thousands of years. How far back, I really don't know. 9th generation, but I'm pretty sure it goes further than that. So I really love that you shared that. In the ancient cultures, it is actually very important to have a teacher, a guide, a master, a root. It is something that I feel very, very strong to share with the world, because it is a rooted place. So really appreciate that, Charlene. Really, really beautiful. And also, I have a strong connection to Canada. My husband is from Ottawa, so there you go. Next up. I wish we had more time. Kevin, next time we can make this a 2-day long summit.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Stephanie, because Stephanie also talks about motherhood awakenings.
Yes, I can't wait. And that is who we're going to speak of next. So I love that. So Stephanie Martinez James, she is an intuitive spiritual guide, a mother and wife, creator behind a spiritual Latina brand. Her mission is to help awaken, heal, and manifest. And she is incredibly passionate about connecting with other Latinas and people of color. So I cannot wait to hear more of your story. Stephanie, would you mind popping in?
Thank you. Yes, Charlene, I was like tearing up when you were talking about your son, because I'm like, that's me. But yeah, so my name is Stephanie. I'm so grateful to be here. And my story begun in childhood. I'm a child of immigrants. My parents immigrated from Mexico, and there was a lot of trauma in our lineage, unfortunately, that, got passed down. And I grew up in a very conflicted household. There was a lot of violence and abuse, and I believe that that's when my awakening started, because that was when the darkness started for me. I would say around the age of like 7 or 8 is when I saw things that a child probably shouldn't have seen, that completely altered the way that I viewed myself, the way that I viewed sex, and just the way that I saw the world. I saw a lot of darkness, and that led me to a journey of darkness. I started just rebelling, and I had unfortunately, an experience at the age of 14. I was sexually abused by a man, and that ultimately led me down this path of self-destruction, because at that age, I took it upon myself and I blamed myself. And at the age of 14, shortly after that happened, I grew up watching novellas, which is basically soap operas. And I started to see this like other possibility of life for me. And I started to see like the rich and the fame and the, the success and all that. And I wanted that. I wanted that because I wanted to escape the life that I had. And I started working at the age of 14. I convinced my dad to get me a fake ID because I wanted to work. I wanted to make money because I thought that money was the way to happiness and success, and to get myself out of the small town that I grew up with and and ultimately run away from my problems. And I did. I started working, and I eventually saved up enough money to move to California at the age of 19. And I wanted to pursue an acting and modeling career, because again, I was just, I was sold on this dream, right, that you see on TV of like these famous people that just are so happy and they have all this money. And it was just something that I wanted. And what ended up happening in California is that I just lost myself. I spent about 10 to 15 years, it's about 10, if I'm doing the math right, years in just self-destructive behaviors, alcohol, substances, drugs, toxic, abusive relationships, just repeating these patterns that I didn't understand, that I was in a way allowing them to happen because I wasn't setting boundaries for myself. I didn't love myself. And ultimately what ended up happening at the age of 25 is I had this moment, because I too had a sort of guardian angel, and she's no longer with us, but I met her, I only knew her for about like 2-3 months. She introduced me to the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and then also The Secret. And it was kind of like I kind of dabbled into it. I was curious about it, but I wasn't ready yet when I met her, which was when I was around 21. And then when I was 25, I remember just one night after I had a really bad night at work. I was a cocktail waitress in Los Angeles. I had a really bad night at work, and I quit. I quit because it was just so toxic, and I just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I was just so miserable. And I was just, something in me was like, I can't do this anymore. And around that same time, I received a message in my dreams that if I kept going down this path, I would end up dead or in jail. And that was for me, like that moment where I think most of us have a moment where it's like, if I continue down this path, like you have 2 options. If I go down this path, this is my destiny, dead or in jail. That's the message that I got. And I was somebody that received, messages and guidance from my angels from a very young age, but they were suppressed because of trauma. So this was like a very intense message that came through. And thankfully I listened, because the other option was I completely cut everything and everyone out that's toxic, that's contributing to this this lifestyle that's going to ruin me, and get essentially my shit together. So I decided to find that box with those books, and it was a random night. And I was desperate at this point. I was literally desperate. I didn't know who I was praying to, the universe, God, like I didn't know, but I was praying. I was literally on my knees. And I get emotional talking about this because it was just such an intense experience. But in that moment, I just prayed, like, please, like, I want to find my husband. I wrote down all the qualities that I wanted in him. I did some visualization. I read a little bit about the book, and literally 2 weeks later, I met my husband. Oh, well, now my husband and the father of my child. And I manifested a good job for myself. I started making some money for myself. And I thought that that was it. I was like, okay, my life's complete. I'm making money. I have an amazing husband. But what was really happening was I was just caught up in my ego. I wasn't willing to address the trauma that I was still carrying. I was still chasing something else, essentially. So I was chasing external validation through money because I thought that money would give me status and give me power and give me all these things. And I was in a corporate sales job for about 5 years until I was about 29, so 4 to 5 years. Recently, in the last 2 years, I quit. And what ended up happening with that job is that I just slowly started losing my passion for it because the money wasn't enough. I was making good money, but my soul was just, it was like, you know, I don't know, I'm sure we all hear it, like those soul sucking kind of jobs where it's just like, I'm giving all of myself, but what am I really, like, what is this money doing for me? Like what I'm working, you know, 7 days a week. I'm burnt out. My health is struggling. I want to have a baby, but there's no way that I can do that right now because of my lifestyle. And again, I had another message come in through a mentor that I hired, a manifestation coach. And hearing her experience of working with a shaman led me to start working with a shaman, which eventually led me down the medicine path. And the plant medicine found me. And I'm speaking specifically about ayahuasca and peyote. And you know, I honor these plant medicines so much, and the all of the indigenous peoples that share these beautiful healing medicines, you know, for us. And I had my ceremonies with my shaman, and that was the first time that I addressed all of the trauma that I was carrying. And it was a very difficult, intense, hard, painful healing journey. But my intention with sitting with these medicines was, I really had two. One was to find my purpose. Because I didn't know what my purpose was. Like, I didn't know, I had a lot of suicidal ideation throughout my entire life. I didn't know why I was here. I didn't get it. I didn't understand why did my soul choose, you know, to go through all of these painful moments, all this trauma. Like, I don't get it. So that was one of my intentions, to find out what my true purpose was. And the other was to manifest my son, to conceive, to have a baby. And that happened about 2 weeks after I sat with peyote, had a peyote ceremony in Mexico. I found out that I was pregnant with my son. And I would say that that was my third and final spiritual awakening of where I'm at now. Pregnancy and motherhood is probably, I would say in my experience, the most intense spiritual awakening that you can ever experience, because you are literally a portal for this soul coming from the spirit realm. My spiritual giftings completely like came through with him because I had this connection to the other side. And then also too, because it awakens something in you where you're like, I never knew I had this strength to go through this pregnancy, to go through this birth. I never realized my body could do this for me. And, you know, ultimately where I'm at now in the postpartum journey, it's just, it kind of forces you to awaken, because there's just such a thin line between like, I'm going to lose my mind because I need a break, versus I have this beautiful being that I'm raising, and how do I want to raise him, and what kind of person do I want to, what kind of mother do I want to be for him? And it really encourages you to stay present in the moment, because there's so many fears that come up. And yeah, ultimately now I understand.
They're hungry. They're hungry when they need to sleep. They need to sleep. I mean, it really is very beautiful.
Yeah.
If you look at it that way, it can be so stressful and hard, or you can kind of adjust your perspective. I love that you're saying that, and that doesn't always, where it's like,
and ultimately that's really it. That's where I'm at right now, you know, with my journey. He is the most beautiful blessing in the world. And now I understand why I went through everything that I went through. I think, I don't think I would have him without it.
Great. Now you're going to make me cry. I need a moment here. Okay. All right. I hear you, Stephanie. I have 2 boys of my own. And so it seems like we're mothers of boys. Very interesting. I really, really appreciate you sharing your story, Stephanie, your journey of spiritual awakening. It is a really beautiful thing to have such amazing people right now together, kind of sharing their spiritual awakening, sharing their stories right now, kind of one after another. I'm not sure I've been I'm not sure I've been in something like this before, but what a beautiful thing, because you can see the differences and the different paths that we're on. I know I sound repetitive, but now we're feeling it, but how connected and how much it is rooted. And hopefully one of my favorite things, if I may, is seeing that no matter how different, we are all human. We all, it's rooted in the same thing, you know, and I firmly believe that if this world begins to look at that, of course, appreciate the differences and the uniqueness of each one of us, but really see that we all come from the same root. And it all really comes down to those universal principles and truths. You know, that is certainly something that I am familiar with from the history and the thousands of years of these philosophies and ways of life, but really appreciate that, Stephanie. In fact, you mentioned something that drew up a memory for myself, which is one of the first meditations I ever experienced or was taught, is simply sitting down. I didn't get that kind of direction. That's not the way it was passed in my lineage. And it was simply said, sit down. I think I was around 8, 9 years old as well. Interesting that age keeps coming up. That is cycles of chi. We can get into that another time in life. But what my mentor taught me was sit down, close your eyes, totally relax, and think of 3 questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? And what is my purpose? And I pretty much heard you say that in your story. And I appreciate that, because it always brings that reminder back. So thank you so much, Stephanie. And for our 4th amazing individual, amazing woman in this panel, it is Tara. Tara Schollenberg, as I mentioned before, she is an amazing Kundalini yoga instructor and astrologer. She actually shares her incredible gifts frequently on Elevate the Globe, which I am very grateful for. She is that, as I just mentioned, co-founder of Elevate the Globe with Britt, and the co-founder of Intune, which is a really amazing Kundalini yoga app for yogic self-therapy and modern mindfulness. I love that. And Tara, you and I have had a chance to speak before, and I really appreciated you sharing your story of spiritual awakening, or your path in general, to be honest. And so I would love for you to share that with everyone here today, if you will.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because I resonate with all of you in some way, shape, or form. And if I look back on, you know, my awakening started that I could really pinpoint like a full catalyst. And I've had multiple since, and I'm currently actually going through one at the moment. And, you know, it all goes back to about 10 years ago when that first thing happened. And it's all like, if I could sum it up, it was a path of self-love and learning to really love yourself and be devoted to yourself. And that's the biggest lesson for me so far in my life, is how to cultivate devotion. And it's gone through, you know, ups and downs and like different levels of commitment, but it all comes back to self-love, devotion, and commitment to the self and to who you are. And so very similarly to you, Charlene, like I spent my whole, you know, like 20s, I was really running away from myself. So like I lived in LA. I was like so excited. I was going to do the PR, like party girl lifestyle. I had multiple job offers for it. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like, I don't think I could actually do this. And I kind of ran away. I like ran away from these uncomfortable feelings. And that was a thing that I kept doing for almost like 15 years. It was this, you know, anytime I felt an uncomfortable feeling that I had to face myself, I would run, and I would actually physically move across the country. Like I was not okay with myself because I had no idea who I was. And I didn't really understand what society wanted from me. You know, the white picket fence life, getting married, having kids, that stuff, have the corporate job with the 6 figures, like, it just was like, gross to me. But there was nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting that. And so I really convinced myself that that's what I needed. And so I started doing all of that, and I started lining up my life in that way. And because my intuition told me this was not the way for you, and I felt like I had to fit in to be the cool person and to do all the cool things and get validation from other people because I couldn't validate myself. I kept abandoning myself. I really set myself up for massive failure. And I found myself 10 years ago living with my then boyfriend, even longer, about 12 years ago. We were living in this basement apartment in San Francisco in Potrero Hill before it was super cool to live there. And I was deeply unhappy and couldn't figure out why. I mean, he and I had a really bad relationship in the sense that, you know, he had been cheating on me and I couldn't pull myself away from him. I wanted to fix it. I felt like I had to have this perfect life put together. And I was 27 years old. And for a year, I started to get really sick in my mind and really sick in my body. And I remember he would leave for work and I would just sit and cry. And I was like, what is wrong with me? I felt like I was going absolutely crazy. And I remember at one point I stood in front of the mirror after I'd cried and I just said, Tara, my spirit came through and said, you have to learn how to let go of things that are not good for you. And that was I knew I needed to do it and I knew I needed to leave, but it was the hardest thing in my life because I had this feeling if I leave him, I'm going to be alone for a long time. And I don't know how to do that. And I don't want to do that. And it was very, very scary. And so I was deeply, deeply in this place of desperation, in this place of darkness, in this depression. And ultimately, this mental illness, sickness got diagnosed as being bipolar. So I went to a psychiatrist and she started giving me medication and I only got one opinion. So from one person. And so she put me on lithium and all these really like heavy things that, you know, if you have a mental disorder, that these things should help you. Well, they weren't helping me at all. I was getting further and further into the darkness. And I just basically couldn't take it anymore. It felt exactly kind of the feeling was like, it wasn't suicidal at this point. Now that comes later on. But I was the most like heavy feeling I've ever felt. And it felt like every ounce of my body had to really get behind my soul and spirit to take action to move out of this situation. And so I did. And I almost had to do it blindly, like just cut everything off. And so I like couch surf with my friends and I started going to different doctors to get a second opinion. I saw new psychologists, I saw new psychiatrists, I saw some neurosurgeons, and everyone was like, you are just in a very bad relationship to yourself and to the world. They pushed me off the medication and talk therapy started to make me feel a lot better. And so I had pulled myself out. I felt free from the darkness, but this was when I just kind of pulled myself out of a hole. Now I started to have to really reconcile. And honestly, up until this day, I'm still understanding what this was all about. And so basically, I was in talk therapy for a long time and I started this curiosity phase that I see a lot of people go through who come into my world of like dabbling in different modalities, dabbling in things that help you get, you know, some clarity. And so for me, the first thing was astrology. I pulled to that because when I was in my teenage years, numerology and astrology were like a natural language to me. I just understood it. And so it was something that helped me wrap my brain around what was actually going on. And so that was the first step. But it wasn't until you know, that was like its own catalyst, like the talk therapy in itself. And it wasn't until I started seeing a psychic that I started working with her and she started to help me understand that all of these visions and all of these things I was saying was actually a gift that I could develop. And I started developing this gift in, you know, with the psychic. She would help me. She was like and she's still here with us, but she is now like this lifelong friend. And she's really helped me open myself up. And from there, my best friend from high school, her name's Britt, who is she now is a co-founder of the business with me. She had asked me to be in her wedding. And so there was a bachelorette party. We went down there and, you know, Britt was this like wild and crazy and fun woman. And she had changed a lot in these couple years that I hadn't seen her. And I realized she was like, just really abundant and grounded and wise and calm. And I was like, what are you doing? And she had been studying to be a Kundalini yoga instructor. So it stuck with me. I was like, I have to try this. If it's working for Britt, I need to try it. Well, it was not until a year later that I was actually ready to do so. And I found a place. I was still living in San Francisco. I found a place in the Haight in Ashbury. And there was an ashram there. It was like one of the only places like 10, 12 years ago that you could find Kundalini yoga. And it was like by donation only. And I went in my first class, I sat down and the teacher, there was like 5 people in the room. And the teacher like had us tune in. I was like, what's going on? This is so wacky and weird. We tuned in and we started doing, you know, this yogic self-therapy. We started therapizing our body. And so one of the first moves we did was a spinal twist. And you're using all the breath and you're really opening your heart. And I remember just feeling all this like tingly energy in my body. And he called it out and he said, you know, if you're feeling that, you're actually repatterning your auric field, you're repatterning your body, you're opening your heart, you're moving energy. And I just had this light bulb of like, holy crap, I can do this by myself.
Yes.
I can do this by myself. This is a therapy I can do for me. And it was so scientific, but also such an experience. And so I was hooked. And from there, that was this catalyst for an awakening where 3 months later, it started to get me really into alignment with my true self. I had to really face a lot. All of the stuff I was dealing with in talk therapy, I had talked about it, but I hadn't felt it. And so I was really feeling it come through my body and purge out of my body. 3 months later, I land in LA and I finally moved back to LA. And I spent almost a year of purging like all of the trauma and all of the emotions in the body. And I would cry a lot. But that led me to another crossroads in life. And this is where I started to become incredibly psychic, so psychic and sensitive. And that led me to like run into Britt again in LA. And we ended up going to see a healer. And she asked me to go see this healer in New York. Well, we did that. And I know that we're kind of wrapping up here, so I'll be quick here, but I ended up having, without any sort of medications, any substances, nothing, I had an incomplete awakening where the entire room opened up like a dome, and my clairvoyance and clairsentience saw 4 beings walk into the room and open up my heart. And one of them said, it's time to open now. And I just started speaking for about an hour and a half. And I wrote down everything, and they basically showed Britt and myself, it was for me and her to come together and create something that is now called Elevate the Globe and In Tune. And so this was an incredible like download. I mean, I was physically seeing angelic beings, and visually they were telling me what to do. And it was the most profound experience still to this day that I've ever encountered, because I'm like, I could physically see and touch them. And Britt's mom came in, she has passed. And it just was instructions. It was a remembrance of why I came here. And as a projector in human design, I have never felt this before, but like every cell in my body was like a green light. And my entire life changed in that moment. In that moment, I took a bath and I was like, my whole life is going to change right now. And from there, Britt and myself we have created Elevate the Globe together and now In Tune. And throughout this journey, you know, there have been many more awakenings and many more things that are happening. Currently at the moment, I'm going through a massive awakening because I know that more of the Kundalini Yoga wants to be shared into the world. And so I'm here for it, but it requires me to become a new person. And so it's similar feelings of like dread and despair and heaviness that you pull yourself out of, and it's pushing yourself to the edge, and then you grow. And so it's incredible. I am so thankful for all of the darkness, but also it's something you can use to completely grow and transform and keep yourself in alignment, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's yeah, Dr. Kim, I'll get back to you in a second. I just want to let people know, so we're going to have to move into the discussion part in a minute. Some of the stories ran a little long, but they were so great, so it was just kind of hard to stop people in these awesome stories. So I'm going to put everyone into immersive view right now, and let's just play with it, and hopefully it works well, so we can have a discussion there. Hang on one second. All right, so we're going into immersive view. I'm going to get rid of I wish I could get rid of myself. I'm not sure if I can. But I'm going to put people on the bottom, and so Nee's coming up in the next session, and I'm just getting rid of some of the people so that, there we go. Okay, so we're going to have times for questions from the audience, and also for discussion amongst the people in the group. So I'm going to leave me and Dr. Kim up here as the hosts, and all the people that are speaking here at the bottom. I'll put myself small.
Brady brunch, you know.
Does anyone, okay, so first, before we get into questions from the audience, are there people like among the four of you, anything that resonated from another person's story that you wanted to talk about or just mention or ask about? Yes,
Charlene.
go ahead.
Can I go ahead? Okay, I just wanted to be
Yeah,
respectful.
feel free to discuss freely. Don't
Yeah.
worry about raising your hand.
Awesome. So I just wanted to say that I found it so fascinating to listen to each of your stories. First, so inspirational, so powerful, so authentic, so vulnerable, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful ways that we can really set a positive footprint out in this world to inspire and empower other people to experience their spiritual awakening without fear or embarrassment or shame. But I find it fascinating that as you're all sharing your stories, while we're all on these individual paths up the mountain, right? Dr. Janelle, you talked about that. We each kind of have these moments where our stories cross over, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and I find that just to be one so beautiful and such a such a reflection of the dance that is this universe that we all get to experience on a daily basis.
Yes, I appreciate that, Charlene. That's one of the things that is definitely a call out for me as well, that there are, and I go back to, I mean, certainly that's what I resonate with. That to me is the Tao. That to me is the universe, that there are these fundamental truths. You know, there's all the other things, but there are these fundamental truths of just being human, being connected to the universe and what that means. And those things don't change, right? Those are just there for everyone. And if we can keep grounding ourselves in those things, which is what every single one of us have touched on, and I'm sure everyone watching can relate to, that is how we can root ourselves and be flexible. You know, that's another thing that if I can just acknowledge here, and I want to get into the questions, but you know, one thing, particularly as a woman, if I may, but I think this man, woman, human, is that sometimes the greatest strength is being flexible. In fact, it's the 8th key in living meditation is be like bamboo. You root yourself, but you have that flexibility so you don't break when something happens. And I have heard that in all of your stories. And I just think that's just so beautiful. So please call out if there's anything else. But one of the
Can I
questions,
say one quick thing,
Please.
Tara?
I had a feeling.
I resonated as well with everybody's story. And it's just so beautiful. I'm just so honored to be here alongside all of you. And Tara, I wanted to mention that I'm actually so glad that you were your main, you know, your awakening journey has been around Kundalini, awakening Kundalini yoga, because that's actually one thing that I forgot about that I just want to bring up because I resonate with that feeling. Literally, when you were telling the story about the beings, my ears were ringing. And it was like, I don't know, I recently realized that the third eye is like, it's a form of clairvoyant, like you see. I used to think that you see something like I'm looking at it right now, but no, it's like a vision that's in your third eye. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just realized that recently and I was like mind blown. I was like, okay, I get it. But anyways, so I had a huge my first spiritual awakening, that experience was through Kundalini yoga. I just remember like literally in my spine, I just felt so much energy. And it was like this zap moment where it was like, whew, like I came from living in my head to my body for the very first time since I was a child. And it was like, I just saw a new world. Like everything was as vivid and as colorful as this screen was. Like I'd never seen life like that before, and it's never been the same. And I just was so inspired by your story because Kundalini energy and Kundalini yoga, I agree, it's so powerful. And you are right. Like it is just it's definitely something that I think that just has the potential to just change the world because of how powerful it truly is. So I was just like vibrating when you were explaining the beings. I was like, oh my God, I feel their energy. So it was really cool.
Yeah.
I love that, Stephanie. That's something that I actually really wanted to call out. I find it to be a very, very important piece. And you just said it. And in fact, we already answered one of the questions, what kind of yoga? But I want to go one step further, that the ancient teachers and sages that exist, one of the things that you will find, and is a little bit newer to Western culture, if I can, is the physical practices that connect mind, body, spirit. That is yogic traditions, that is traditional martial arts. That is why a huge part of practice for myself, and that's a question I'd like to open up, is Qigong, or what I call moving meditation. But when we are able to, long story short, and I know that that's something kind of important, and I'll get into the second question in a second, but when we're able to rebalance our body, our physical self, that connects to the mind. We talk about mind, body, spirit all the time. It's one of the quickest ways we can bring ourselves into the present moment, balance the energies in our body. In Eastern medicine, Qigong, we talk about meridian systems. In Kundalini yoga, we talk about chakras and also energy, prana. It's all the similar principles. But when we can do that, it's a really important piece. And I wonder, Crispy, I wonder, Charlene, Stephanie, I heard you just say that, Tara, I know that for a fact, it's one of your practices, but that is something kind of going back to how we can purify ourselves, awaken. That's one of the best ways, as our teachers taught us. Certain movement, ancient forms that connect internal and external. Okay, so really important. The other question that came up is, according to what I'm listening to, and this is from Carola, I hope I'm saying her name right. According to what I'm listening, I knew this would come up. The traumatic experiences are the awakening. Can we have so many awakenings?
So yes, and the question marks in there were the traumatic experiences are the awakenings. So she heard all of you talking about these traumatic experiences, and then was wondering, is that what the awakening is? So just somebody go ahead and talk to that if you can.
I can talk to it. I think that the traumatic experiences, are traditionally probably what we would identify with them, but I've had many awakenings. To me, an awakening is just also a perception shift. And so you can have an awakening and like through a hard conversation with a friend. I just had one the other day where it was a conversation I wanted to run away from, but I faced it with grace, right? That's what the yogic helps us, the yogic technology helps us to do, is really achieve this level of grace. And from there, it was almost like I could see the past 2 years of my energy very clearly. And I was very much like, I can't turn back now. I see what has happened in the last 2 years through one conversation. And it wasn't traumatic. It was just not, it wasn't comfortable. It was an uncomfortable conversation. So I think they can be both. And you could say, there's big catalyst awakenings and then there's small ones. And it's just a perception shift. That's my view on awakening.
Yeah, and Charlene, I remember you had talked in some of your YouTube videos about how the darkness can relate to the awakening process. Did you want to mention something about that?
Yeah, so I think I really love what Tara was saying about how awakenings, sorry, I just want to jump back to just tie in what Tara was saying, because you make a very good point when you talk about the fact that an awakening can be this catalyst moment. It can be something like ginormous and traumatic, or it can be something like giving birth. For me anyways, my birth wasn't a catalyst moment in the negative sense, right? I know we attach catalyst to negative. It was a beautiful transformative moment, but then there are also these moments of feeling, going to what Kevin was saying, going into that moment of darkness. And the darkness can sometimes feel like it is so depleting, like it is sucking your soul, as if it's, as if there is no light or there is no coming out of that darkness. However, if we think about the ocean, right, going to this photo here of this lake, if we were to go to the bottom of this lake that is in this backdrop that we have here, guess what there is? Darkness. But if we were to look at our perspective and continue to look down, all we continue to see is darkness. And so sometimes a shift in perspective will help us to see up, and then we can see the light. We can also appreciate being in that darkness and honoring that darkness and that journey. And more importantly, an understanding that we are the light, right? The light exists within us. And if I can quickly share, to help that person who was like, oh my God, our, spiritual awakening is only traumatic. So I started off my YouTube channel doing only tarot videos because I kept playing small, going back to that whole theme of needing to fit in, what's cool, what's trending, what works. And last year in the summertime, I got a really big calling to stop doing tarot. And while I don't consider this a big spiritual awakening, it was a shift in perspective. It was an awakening in the sense of me realizing how, again, I was choosing to play small. I was choosing to try and conform. I was choosing to try and fit into something that I didn't necessarily, maybe I belonged into it, but I was bigger than it. And so in that transitionary moment, I left the money, the label of being a tarot reader on YouTube, all the, views, all the likes, all the, all the things that come with it, to choose to actually align with a path. So I do love that It's about looking, and I had to look inside of myself for that answer. Because trust me, I pulled out every single tarot deck that I have, trying to get an answer as to what I was supposed to do next. And every single time, if you know tarot, then you know I kept getting the High Priestess and the Hierophant. And so that was like the tarot telling me, go in, girl, don't look out, the light is within you. So hopefully that helped to answer the question.
It's one thing I keep hearing everyone saying, and this might be a way that resonates, right? Is so when you look at the universe, I saw all of us agreed earlier, for lack of a better word, when you look at the universe, there is that understanding of yin and yang. It's that duality. And so oftentimes, in short, it's when we reach one extreme that it transforms into the other, right? Day becomes night, night becomes day. And that is something that if we're aware of that, that is very Taoist, that is very universal. That is how it can seem sometimes, and oftentimes it is that dark moment, that's the extreme, that all of a sudden then we go into the light moment and it helps us to awaken. However, I love that. It can be the small moments too, a change of perspective, an awareness, an expansion of the mind is what you will often hear that we have not really mentioned yet. That is an understanding of what awakening is. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
And there's another question that there was some other questions that just came in, but it is 3:15 now and we have the second panel starting soon. So I just want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you all for being here. It's been amazing to hear all of your stories. The ways that they overlap and the ways that they diverge is always a fascinating thing for, I think, for people to understand. Like there's some similarities in different people's awakenings and then some differences, and everybody's a unique individual. So in the next group that we're going to be going into in a few minutes, we're going to have Nini Lee and Dr. Robert Svoboda and Miao Ming. These are some really amazing experts in understanding what exactly awakening is and the ways that we can, catalyze it and things like that. And we're going to get into that kind of really sort of definitive kind of discussion after the break. So thank you all for being here. It's been amazing to hear you. And Dr. Kim, did you have anything that you wanted to say before we transition into the break?
No, I kind of summed up all of it, but I am so, so grateful for this panel, this discussion. It seems so, how can you even embody that in the word panel, but this time together, clearly, we all are connected in this. Clearly, there is a challenge in life, but if we all connect to that, if we remember each other, we remember that we are never alone. We know that where there's a down, there's an up. And so I really appreciate our time together.
Awesome. And just everybody should know who's watching this. These conversations are all interviews that are going to be excerpted into the new issue of Meditation Magazine when we release the Awakening issue. So here, let's see if I can go. Yes, I'm not sure exactly how to transition into the break, but I'm gonna stop the immersive view, and here we are. And yes, we're going to transition to the break now. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And if you want to check out the new Awakening issue, go to meditationmag.com, and you can make sure to subscribe so that you're able to get that if you haven't already subscribed. All right, everybody, see you later. Have a beautiful day. And the speakers for panel 2, stick around for panel 2, the people that are speaking in panel 2.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.
Veronica? And we're back. I think, Kevin, that you are on mute. I'm sorry, we had a little bit longer break, but I hope you all enjoyed it. And here we are now. Kevin, for panel.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Kim, for jumping in with that. And we have a really amazing panel right now that you guys are all gonna love. So in the first panel, we talked about each person's spiritual awakening story and kind of like the journey of it. And in this panel, we're going to be more definitive in terms of understanding what spiritual awakening is. And we have three amazing speakers. Dr. Robert Svoboda is the author of Agora and Kundalini and many other amazing books. Agora in particular really changed my life, and I want to thank Dr. Svoboda for that. Very, very powerful books. For anybody who's interested, check them out on Amazon. And we're gonna be moving on to Nini Lee, who's a teacher in our meditation teacher training and also a very popular Insight Timer teacher. And then we're going to be moving on to Miao Ming, who is the abbot of Heart Chan across the entire United States, the entire Heart Chan movement. So really exciting speakers to get to now. And I want to start with Dr. Svoboda. Welcome, Dr. Svoboda.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. So the first question that I want to ask each person is just sort of a personal question about your personal journey. What got you into spirituality, and what brought you into this sort of path of spirituality and awakening?
I started off my life more or less where I am right now, which is in the Gulf Coast of the US. And my family was Christian, Baptist. And I had an interest in spiritual things from an early age, and I developed a direct personal relationship with Jesus Christ at an early age. So I was already interested in that, but as I grew older, I found that I wanted to go deeper into that realm, and I had a powerful experience when I was 16 that disconnected me from my up until then way of looking at myself and the world around me and so on. And it took a couple of years, but then after making a trip through Africa and then crossing overland to India and then meeting some people in India, finally, I ended up meeting various people in India who started me on a spiritual path. And then in September of 1975, I met Vimalananda. And once I met him, then I really got connected to an alignment with reality that has served me well ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. And I wanted to ask you specifically about awakening or spiritual awakening. So whenever I watch your videos, you tend to be very definitive and really precise with things and pronunciations and things. So I wanted to ask you specifically, what constitutes spiritual awakening?
I think the first thing I'd like to say, being nice and definitive, is that we can talk about awakening in a relative sense. It's as I was taught by Vimalananda and in my own personal experience, it's not like you are asleep one day and you're completely and totally awakened the next day. It's a matter of being asleep. The word we commonly use in Sanskrit is that one is completely overtaken by dullness, by tamas. And that means you're stuck in your own self-definition. The way that you were brought up and that people put you, the little box that people put you in is the box that you tend to stay in. And when that box first opens, definitely it is an awakening, because suddenly you realize that there's more to it, more to reality than you thought there was. But that's only the first stage. The first stage is you being aware that there's more to reality than you thought there was. But then over a period of often a long period of time, in my case, I continue to find myself becoming more and more awake in different ways. And this is after what, now 50 years. So I think the most important thing, particularly nowadays, when people tend to take concepts and objectify them in such a way that they tend to make them as if they were individual things, this awakening is very much like being a human being. It's a process. We experience ourselves as being integrated organisms on a moment-to-moment basis, but we're being transformed millisecond by millisecond, and that transformation usually is something that is not explicit to us until we start to really redefine ourselves in a way that makes it more explicit.
Yeah, wow. So it's so you're talking about awakening now as sort of like this really sort of lifelong process, and that is one way that people sometimes conceptualize it and talk about it. But I've also heard, well, I've talked to a lot of gurus and things over the past 10 years, and I hear people talking about some specific experiences like the experience of oneness or the experience of being in the present moment. So there's like four that I've heard a lot. One is like waking up from the dream of thought into the present moment. One is like waking up from being, you know, this limited ego into the transcendent universal self. One is like Kundalini awakening, and like one is like love and heart awakening. So do you see these all as like different kinds of awakening? Do you see them as like stages along a journey? What do you think of that?
I'm not there. I would say they're not necessarily stages, and they would be different kinds of awakening in the sense that they're different parts of your reality, not just your physical organism, but your spiritual, your pranic, your mental organism. They're different parts of your reality that can become that eventually you want your entire reality to become awake and connected to that undifferentiated, thought-free reality of awareness. But that's exactly the kind of thing that I mean when I say that an initial awakening is going to be kind of temporary. In my case, when I was age 16, it was an initial Kundalini awakening and I had no idea of what Kundalini was, and it took me years until I had a context for that and found a way to start to work with that energy. But Kundalini is one manifestation of Shakti out of many different Shakti means energy. Shakti means power. Shakti means the ability of consciousness to manifest itself in this world of name and form and duality. And so when you're connected to oneness in whatever way you're connected to it, if you are connected to oneness indefinitely, then there's not going to be any reality of your individuality anymore. So there's always got to be some kind of relationship between that ability that you as an individual have to connect to oneness and the reality that you as an individual, meaning by definition, you're part of duality. You are temporarily separating your awareness from all of the other awareness in the cosmos. And so there has to be a relationship created between that experience of oneness and the experience of two-ness, that if you're going to be able to continue as an individual, if you simply become awakened and connect to that reality, you're not going to be able to remain a human being any longer.
Yeah, wow. So the first answer that you gave was talking about the spiritual journey in general, sort of over the course of the lifetime. And then, but this, we're talking about a specific kind of awakening, which is like that merging with the oneness, right? So the individual ego kind of merging into the oneness. So would you say that the entire spiritual journey of the lifetime is toward that specific thing, the merging into the oneness, but maybe not fully because you want to still also remain a human? But would you say that that's generally the goal of the sort of spiritual awakening path, or would you say that it's more like there's different kinds of awakening that different kinds of people can experience?
There are, in my opinion and my experience, absolutely different kinds of awakening. So, for example, if you go to a devotee of Krishna, that devotee, who, if he or she is a sincere devotee, will say they have no desire whatsoever to connect to the oneness. They want to remain separate from Krishna so that they can enjoy being connected to Krishna and enjoy the experience of there being that duality, but in such a way that they're not being, their attention is not being distracted by anything else, that their attention is only connected to that reality of that deity that they have accepted as their goal. So it depends very much on how you define your goal. And at least in India, and at least from Vimalananda's point of view, there is no end to the number of goals, the type of goals, the directions you might go into. It's up to you to decide for yourself, with the guidance, hopefully, of a guru or whoever, it's up to you to decide what direction you want to go into and then go in that direction.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear you say that. It's a very powerful thing for us to realize that there are all these different directions that we can go in. I have heard in your 5-ish minutes series, you sometimes say that the direction is, or the right direction is the toward the realization of fundamental reality or something like that. I don't want to misquote you, but something like that. So would you say that there's any direction that is more powerful than the others, or would you say that all directions are equally valid in terms of spiritual awakening?
I'm not sure that I'm qualified to make an absolutist statement of that nature. I definitely feel like there is a direction, that the direction that I am going in, my personal direction, I am very convinced that it's the right direction for me. But Vimalananda emphasized again and again that everyone should, and he liked to say it this way. He said that everyone should carve out their own niche. So there's this concept in the Vedas of ayatana, and ayatana means like a destination or a landing place. So back in the Vedas, people understood. I mean, you're a human being is a very, very limited and temporary and short-lived kind of experience. And once you've departed from a human body, you need to know where you intend to go thereafter. And perhaps in the context of the Vedas, it was to create a space for yourself in the astral world so that then you would be able to decide where you wanted to go after that. So I think it's up to everyone to decide where they would like to go, and to be and to acknowledge that as you start moving in the direction that you think you want to go, you may find that in fact, ultimately, that's not really the direction that you want to go in, and you may need to realign yourself along the way.
Wow. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much for that perspective, that sort of big picture perspective. And in terms of going in this path, this sort of direction that you seem to like to go in, which is that merging with the oneness, and the supreme reality and whatever, if I can, I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but in that direction, if somebody wants to go in that direction and maybe even integrating Kundalini into that path, how would you recommend somebody go about that? Would you say Kundalini is helpful in that way, or not necessary or unnecessary? And how can somebody move toward that supreme reality?
Well, before I answer that question or attempt to answer that question, let me just say that my perspective on what is supreme reality changes sometimes on a daily basis. I mean, there are moments when aligned with a particular devata, a particular deity, that is for that moment the reality that is supreme for me. And sometimes being aligned with the force of the guru himself, or a guru, a world guru like Dattatreya, for example. Sometimes that reality is what is the supreme reality for me. I mean, my personal interest is trying to be of service to the cosmos in whatever particular way I can. And I feel like the best way I can do that is to align myself the best way that I can with the cosmos. It just so happens that in my personal life, I've had a number of different ways of aligning with things. Kundalini is not at all. Kundalini is a particular manifestation, a particular kind of set of phenomena. What is, I think, absolutely characteristic of any kind of spiritual transformation is the fact that the energy that is called Kundalini, which is only called Kundalini in certain tantric texts, that energy is exactly the same energy that in the Sankhya philosophy we call ahankara. Ahankara literally means the thing that creates I-ness, creates an individual personality. when that energy is moving in the direction of making you feel more integrated as an individual, we call it ahankara. When that energy is disconnecting from you as an individual and reconnecting either to the supreme reality with no qualities, no characteristics, and no attributes, or to the reality of a devata, a deity, that is, so it's the difference in Sanskrit we say between the nirguna Brahman, the reality that has no qualities, and the saguna Brahman, the reality that has some qualities. So there's once you start the process of awakening, there's always going to be a dynamic between part of the time you're going to be more integrating with yourself as an individual, and part of the time you're going to be less individualized and more connected to the nirguna, the saguna, whatever it may be, that is not you. So it's all once you start this process of awakening, you've created a relationship between the part of you that is trying to remain you and the part of you that is trying to evolve into something that is other than you. And this does not necessarily require you to have some kind of experience of dramatic changes in the movement of your prana. That may happen. Certainly it happened for me. But it can happen. It doesn't have to happen on that level of experience, because we as organisms, one of the Upanishads likes to talk about there being 5 koshas: the physical body, the pranic body, the mental, emotional, thought and feeling kind of body, the causal body, which is where all of the karmas that have caused us to get incarnated on this plane are located, and the greater causal body, which are all the shared karmas with you and your family, the people in your country, the people in your ethnic group, the people on the entire planet, all of the organisms on the planet. They're all contributing to this big shared set of karmas, out of which you believing yourself to be an individual, having performed certain actions that you have identified with this force of self-identification, those things act as karmas, and the results of those karmas, in order to be experienced, cause you to be born down here. And really, the idea is that you should be finding ways to deal with the karmas that have brought you down here and the karmic connections, the rananubandhanas, that you experience down here, and making yourself enlightened in the sense of lightening the heavy load of karmas that have weighed you down here in the first place.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Dr. Svoboda. And we're going to move on to Ni in a minute, but Ni has a very powerful story of her own Kundalini movements. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned just now that you had some movement of the Kundalini. Would you call that Kundalini awakening? And what does that feel like? What did that feel like for you?
Well, I mean, it's been a process that really has been continuing to go on for the past, how old am I now? Well, more than 50 years. 53 years. I'm 63 now. So initially it was something that I had no, here I am, I'm in Oklahoma, I'm 16, I don't have any clue, but suddenly I'm in this situation where all of my prana is trying to leave from my body. And there's something that I understand, that if I allow myself to leave, I don't really know what's going on. I don't know how to, I don't know. I'm pretty clear I'm not going to figure out, I'm not going to know how to get back into my body. And so on the one hand, I was able to stay in my body. On the other hand, that created a number of blockages in my organism that took decades to get rid of. So it's not like this is some sort of, you have Kundalini is awakened and now you are going to be a great person and you will have an exciting and carefree life. No, that will not. I mean, it may happen to somebody. Didn't happen that way to me. I mean, I'm glad it happened, because otherwise I wouldn't have ended up where I did. It's just that it was not a simple, pleasant you know,
Wow.
gentle breeze kind of experience for me.
Yeah, yeah. In the first group that we talked to, there was this very common thread of some dark experience or difficult experience that catalyzed the spiritual journey of searching for meaning and finding something deeper. So would you say that that was like the thing that catalyzed it for you, that Kundalini awakening experience that was actually difficult when you were young, like 16 or in Oklahoma? Was that it for you? That was like a darkness that or a difficulty that catalyzed your journey?
Well, I mean, I suppose you could characterize it as dark or difficult. I mean, I'm growing up in the 60s. What has happened in the 60s? We've had all kinds of things. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I was near Houston at that time. So, I mean, we would have been a target. And so they actually told us to duck and cover. And then there was Kennedy's assassination, and then there was MLK's assassination, and RFK, and the Vietnam War, and it's like it. And there was Woodstock, and there was everything that the previous generation had held as part of standard reality suddenly was not standard reality anymore. So it was a good time to be alive for the purpose of opening yourself to other perspectives, but it was not an easy time to be alive. I remember in Ouspensky's book, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it was the book that he wrote about Gurdjieff's teaching to them in Russia during the time of World War I. And at some point in the book, Gurdjieff says to them, the war is a terrible thing, but thank God it's going on right now, because all the other people in the country are so preoccupied with that their attention is turned away from what we're doing over here, and therefore we can allow things to manifest in present time consciousness that would be very difficult to manifest otherwise, because the consensus reality in the astral world would be so strong. And that's when he actually introduced the Enneagram, at a time when there was the terrific upheaval in Russia at that time. But in the same way, there was a terrific upheaval, not quite as dramatic, of course, in the 60s in the US, but that was a time when, therefore, it was possible for fairly easily for your awareness to slip off in directions that you had no idea you might slip off into. And fortunately, I'm assuming that it's due to previous karmas. Fortunately, I was able to get onto a path that first led me to Africa, which was quite a formative experience for me. And then that itself led me to go to the subcontinent, and I ended up meeting the right people at the right moment, and things moved on from there.
Yeah, wow. It's from your story, it's you actually kind of tied together the you could call it the catalyzing moments that you had back in the 60s and as a teenager with the Kundalini, and then also the catalyzing moments that society had with those moments of upheaval, you could call it, where there were these moments of upheaval in the United States and Russia and things like that, that actually introduced these new directions of spirituality in both of those civilizations. So you could kind of see it as like a microcosm of the individual, where you're going on a spiritual journey after a moment of upheaval, and then also the civilization having moments of upheaval that spur sort of new spiritual directions. Very interesting to see how that kind of upheaval, you could call it, as the word that you used, can spur us to go in search of something deeper in life and something beyond the things that we normally know. And I thank you so much for what you've talked about so far. We have a limited time, so I want to move on to Ni's story, because Ni also has a very interesting story about upheaval and Kundalini, and then we'll have some time for discussion afterward. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Svoboda, for being here today and for talking to us about these beautiful things. And we're gonna get into the discussion afterwards. So Ni, let's move on to you really quickly. I know that you have a really interesting story and with that shares some elements and some very different. So do you want to just tell your story really quickly?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having me. So nice to meet you all. So my awakening journey actually started when I was really young. When I was around 14 years young, I was bullied in school. And I felt very, very isolated to the point where I harmed myself. I didn't want to be on this physical earth anymore. And my dad was the one that found out because I was just so exhausted, so drained. And he thought I was on drugs, but actually I was just so depressed, like zero life force energy. And that moment when my dad discovered what was happening to me, I heard this voice, but this voice didn't come from my dad. It came from, I felt was my spirit guides. And the voice was, it's not time for you to go anymore. Like, it's not time for you to leave this planet. You'll understand much later on in your life. Like, you have a purpose here. And it took me lots and lots of time to heal from that experience. And throughout my teenage years and university years, I was so great at hiding that pain. I was distracting myself, going out, partying, drinking, everything. Until this one day, I felt this calling to go to Nepal and India. So I went to do the Mount Everest base camp hike, and I suffered from severe altitude sickness, having a blood nose every night, headache, all of the symptoms. And actually the morning when I was getting rescued from a helicopter, I passed out. And I had this little Nepalese boy sitting beside me. And I remember, like, every single day leading up to that moment, I was in such deep prayer, just deep, deep prayer, because I didn't want to leave. Because I felt that I was slowly reaching that point where I'm just going to literally black out and pass away, because I was hearing from a lot of the Sherpas there, the guides, that, yeah, like last week someone passed away in their sleep and all of these things. I was like, oh my goodness, I don't want that to be me. And so that morning I passed out, and I remember so vividly my whole life playing out in front of me. It was like all of the series of beautiful moments appearing in front of my eyes, and everything felt so light. There was like this just illuminating light, like reaching heaven's gate, and it was so beautiful. And in that moment, I started to realize, oh my goodness, like why am I seeing all of this? And I kept saying to myself, I don't want to go yet. I don't want to go yet. And this little Nepalese boy was the one that brought me back. He was like saying, Miss, like, wake up, your helicopter is here. And I could just hear and feel this force of like the chopper coming down in front of this homestay in the mountains. And before I knew it, I was just on the helicopter, flown back in the hospital for days, trying to recover from this altitude sickness. And then that was pretty much the moment where it catalyzed like every single step after that for me to really come back into alignment. I was working at a radiography job, very secure job that, it's great. I have my finances, I have a home, have all of these things, but I was so unfulfilled. So unfulfilled to the point where I felt like I was losing myself completely. And so I knew I had to take a different path. So one day, 5 years after that experience, I decided to quit my job and leave everything in Australia. And I booked a one-way ticket to Bali. What I thought was going to be maybe a 6-month trip till I ran out of money, come back if I needed to my secure job. And 3 months being in Bali, the pandemic happened, and I chose to not come back to Australia. And at that point, I was not making any money. I was honestly in debt as well. And like, I'm like, when I reflect, I'm like, oh my God, that was such a silly move. But it made me trust life. It made me trust myself, because I knew I had so much value to offer to the world, but it wasn't in the way that I thought I was able to offer. So when I moved to Bali, I said to myself, I'm going to become a nobody. When people ask me, what do you do? Nobody, like, because I felt like that was a doorway for me to really explore who I wanted to become by getting rid of all of the labels. So by doing that, people became very curious about me, and all of these opportunities and blessings started to flow my way. And I met very incredible teachers and mentors during my 2.5 years in Bali. A high priest in Bali, like, it's just like people that I don't ever think I would meet in the ordinary world, because Bali is just a very magical portal. And so I met this high Balinese priest and a really amazing group of mentors, and I decided to partake. I was being initiated into a practice called a Purba practice. So if you're familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, it's a purba is like a magical dagger that is used to conquer evil spirits, and to destroy any obstacles that acts as an impediment to your enlightenment. So I went on a very specific diet for 30 days. And the purba was handmade by the Balinese priest, and it had my DNA in it, my hair. There's so many different parts of me. And after those 30 days of practice, while also practicing Bikram yoga almost every single day, really taking care of myself, really learning to love myself. And that was like the key thing about my awakening journey. It was learning to love myself, learning to love. And one night in my sleep, I had my Kundalini awakening, and I didn't actually know what it was. All I felt was like this energy rushing from the base of my spine to the crown of my head, and I was seeing geometry, colors. It felt like bliss, like an obliteration of my entire being. And that experience really opened up my gifts, my creativity, remembrance of, like what I'm here to do or to be. And at the base of it all, it was just love. Like the only word that I kept hearing was just love, and to share that. So, and after that experience, led me on a path of 4 years up until this moment of just deep spiritual work, deep service, and just continuing to be able to share my heart in the most authentic way. And after that experience, I never actually went to search like, what is spiritual awakening? What is the chakras? All of these things, because I'm a kind of person that just allows my experience to be my greatest teacher, and to allow nature. Actually, nature is one of my greatest teachers and mentors. Drinking tea in ceremony and connecting to the spirit of tea is awakening in itself. So whenever I feel like I'm in a dark space, like what you said, Dr. Svoboda, the awakening experience it's not all rainbows and butterflies after that. It always brings you back to like shadow work, right? It's always teaching us, well, how are you going to embody what you teach? You know, have you really learned the lesson, or are you going to go back to your old ways? And so the Kundalini awakening, or the awakening itself, is always, for me, reminding myself of how much are you really embodying, you know, who you really are. And just not seeing the dark as something bad, but really as a powerful teacher there to open us up to more light, right? Like more parts of ourselves that is light. So in short, that was my story.
Yeah. So you said it's that the awakening is like embodying who you really are. So who are you really? Who is who you really are?
So I personally really believe that, you know, despite all of our circumstances, despite all of our stories, there is this part of us, this like eternal spark of light, this incandescent light that is so unique, that has magical gifts and powers. And so the me, the I that awakens is coming back to that remembrance, you know, to unveil that eternal spark, that genius inside of me, of us, that separates, you know, that makes us so unique, yeah, that we carry in our DNA, and being able to share that with the world. So yeah, that part of me that wakes up is that God self, that source self, knowing that I'm no separate from anything else, no separate from the flower, the butterfly, you know, this laptop, like all of you. It's like we're so interconnected, and you know, showing up in that space. And I feel that when we awaken to that, like we truly are able to serve from such a space of love and devotion. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the spark that's I know you were calling it the light and things like that, but would you say that's like sort of like that spark of consciousness that's like connected with all the rest of the consciousness in the universe, or like how would
Yes.
you and
Yes.
you were saying that it's like the uniqueness, but then also the connectedness to everything, and that we're not separate from anything. So how does that uniqueness and the connectedness go together?
So I love to see it like a grand orchestra, yeah? And everyone is their own instrument. One person's the violin, one person's the piano, one person's the trombone. And we are playing this beautiful, like just musical, like song. And I really see it like that. And so, you know, I want to talk about me, like my mission is like, how do I refine myself? Like, how do I keep my own self sharp and be able to show up and heal myself in a way that I contribute to this musical, this grand orchestra in an empowered way. So like, yes, like we are our own, you know, vessel, all of these things, but we play like this bigger like role in this cosmos. So that's how I see the separateness and the interconnectedness.
Yeah, that you know, a lot of people talk about there's some people in the spiritual community talk about things that are very much related just to the individual, and then there's some in the spiritual community that talk very specifically about things that are the universe, you know, like the dissolution of the individual and the realization of oneness with the universe. So you have these two sort of strains in the spiritual community, and I like how you're kind of integrating the two of them right now, as the individual as sort of like this one player in an orchestra, where we are the player and we're also the orchestra. Yeah, so thank you for that beautiful story and those beautiful insights, Nhi. And then just in the interest of time, because we could definitely talk for so long, both with Dr. Svoboda and with you, but I want to make some time for discussion at the end. So I want to move on to Miao Ming. And Miao Ming, Miao Ming is the abbot of the Heart Chan movement in the United States. And I would like to kind of ask more sort of specific Dharma questions rather than getting more into the story with you, because I think your story is interesting, but I think you have so much to say about sort of Dharma related things. So let's start out with first of all, thank you for being here. Hi, Miao Ming.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to start out with a very specific and precise question here. What is spiritual awakening?
Well, first off, I can only really talk from my own experience, and I'll probably preface everything I say as being from my experience. And the reason for that being is I could quote scripture or I could quote sutras, but that's really just reiterating, regurgitating other people's experience. Each of us really walks this path and then sort of ingests and defines this path for ourselves. For example, we're talking about interconnectedness with all things. We often do walking meditation here at our retreat center we have here in the mountains in northern Georgia. And we try to give people sort of a contrasting experience from you when we're doing very formal seated meditation in a specific posture. And it's really a lot of sensory deprivation. Close the eyes. We're in a room where the temperature is controlled and it's quiet. So there's no form distractions. So we can become very focused internally. And then we'll go out onto the forest path and really try to experience the exact opposite of that. The eyes are open. We can smell the flowers in bloom. We can hear the birds and the animals. We're trying to harmonize the breath with the steps as we feel the variations in the terrain. And the intent is not to walk through the forest, but to really feel and experience that integration, that oneness, that harmony, that interconnectedness with all of the life force that's there. But interestingly, a group of us can walk that forest path, half a dozen people, for example, and we'll walk through the path at the same time in the same environment in exactly the same situation. And when we get to the end of the walk after some period of time, we'll share what the experience was like. And they can be incredibly and dramatically different. We just walked the same path through the same forest at the same time, yet one person saw a turtle that no one else saw. Someone else heard a bird that no one else heard. Some people found the walk to be very pleasant and enjoyable. Others found it to be arduous, climbing up the hills. So even though we had exactly the same experience, our interpretation of that, our internalization, how we share that is uniquely different. And so if someone started on the path a little earlier or came a little later or walked a different path, their experience would be dramatically different. So when you ask me, what is my experience or how might I share awakening or an opening of the heart, a connectedness, I can really only speak from my own experience rather than try to reiterate or interpret someone else's experience. So from my experience, and I've been, I think, somewhat of a parallel path with Dr. Sepulveda. It's been over 50 years that I've been doing meditation, grew up through America, the cultural changes, etc., and found myself with masters and teachers all over the world. Eventually at a seminar where I was just going in to meet another master, Wuzhu Miao Tian, has a lineage back 85 generations and teaches in Taipei. And he was doing a workshop in Shanghai, and I just happened to attend that. And when the seminar was over, he asked if I could meet with him privately. And when we met, he said, I would like to share with you the heart imprint, the direct transmission of the teachings. He says, do you, and through a translator, he didn't speak any English, and my Chinese is usually considered in the abysmal category. So we couldn't really translate from language at all, but they asked if I was familiar with heart transmission, a direct transfer of the teaching heart to heart. And I said, I've read about it and I maybe have some intellectual understanding of it, but no, I don't really know what it is. And he said, well, I would like to pass that to you if you're willing to accept. And immediately through my mind is, if I choose to accept this, my life trajectory is going to change dramatically from where I thought my life might go to accepting this. It becomes a life of service and sharing and become a component in this continuing flow of sharing this teaching through generations. But concurrent with that, almost immediately without taking a breath, is I couldn't conceive of any better use of this life. So I accepted, and he passed the teaching to me. There was a bit of a ritual, a ceremony, did the direct heart-to-heart transmission. And again, with no language, with no verbal transfer, he would state what he had shared, and then someone would ask me what I felt, what I experienced, and they used that to validate. And so I received this teaching. I received the entirety, but it's not like, as others have experienced it, not like instantaneously it's rainbows and butterflies. All of the challenges of life are still there. It's, if I were to equate it to something, I would say it's similar to being given the key to a metropolitan library. Suddenly all of the knowledge, all of the experience, all of the essence of the world is available to you. But then you have to put in the work. You still have to decide where you're going to invest yourself. You still have to pull each book off the shelf and read it. So there's still the daily practice, which only intensified really after this experience. And then through the process of 50 years of meditation, and now having received this connection to the heart and being able to feel and experience what that felt like, I found myself going through these various phases of experience, and didn't really consider them to be individual steps or phases. It was just sort of a very natural, continuous flow. In retrospect, when I try to share that or try to help others clarify their experience, I see where it could be broken down into phases, and they're phases that to one extent or another are documented in the Dharma, in sutras that I've read afterwards. But the experience seems to flow through essentially 4 steps or 4 phases. And the first one is, once one is able to surpass form to some extent, surpass the distractions and hindrances of the physical self, how the body or the postures or the breathing might create distraction. When that sort of quiets and dissipates, then the mind, the consciousness, the intellect really takes precedence, and it takes some time and some focused effort and some guidance to be able to release and relax and quiet that distraction of mind. And then we're able to establish and sustain a very specific focus. And we have various points, energetic points from Qigong or traditional Chinese medicine, from some of the Taoist perspectives, oftentimes gives us points to focus and try to stay undistracted. And when we're able to do that to some extent, we start to have these experiences, or at least I can share my experience. And the first phase seems to be entering into this state that's incredibly pleasurable. It's very peaceful. It's very calm. There's a sense of happiness and joy. And even though there might still be some negative energies that enter in, there might still be some anger or some unhealthy desire or something that arises, it really has nowhere to attach. It arises and it just fades, more like a cloud passing by. And it doesn't have any disruption on this deep feeling of bliss and of just an incredibly pleasurable experience. And I know for many people that enter into our practice, that's their end point. They're looking for a sanctuary from the stresses and challenges of life, maybe a release from some physical issue that they're wrestling with, or an interpersonal relationship they're wrestling with. And they're very happy and content to just learn how to develop the skillfulness to enter into this state of very pleasant bliss. But from my experience, if you're able to continue to sustain that focus, not congratulate yourself because you accomplished something, which is sort of like bursting the bubble, but if you're able to really sustain that focus, it continues to evolve. If I were to describe it, it's like entering into a smoke-filled room, and the smoke starts to dissipate, and there's some increased clarity. And so the experience is something like it still has that very deep feeling of bliss, and it's very pleasant, but now the negativities don't arise at all. It's not like they arise and don't attach. They just cease to exist. So there's nothing pulling me in a negative direction, and light, as described previously, starts to become more and more significant. There's a lightening in the room as well as a dissipating of that which might obscure what we see and what we feel and what we experience. And it seems like as that clarification continues, it evolves into the sense that as more and more clears in that room, the smoke dissipates or the light becomes a bit brighter, that we really see that we're all so incredibly interconnected, that nothing really seems to exist in isolation, but everything, every action, every word, every emotion influences others' feeling and sense and emotion. And then there's a very powerful experience, like turning the light on in the room, where it was a dark room that was slowly illuminating, and suddenly it bursts very powerfully into an incredible brightness. A possible analogy might be something like a magnifying glass. I know when I was young, people would have a magnifying glass and they would focus it on the sun, and then maybe try to focus that on a dead leaf or a piece of paper. And if this incredible power of the sun would go for a period of time without being obscured, and if I could maintain and sustain stillness and allow that energy to focus to a fine point, and then it would go on to the sheet of paper, and there might be some warming of the paper, and then some discoloration, and then maybe some smoke or vapor starting to emanate, and then it would burst into flame, this incredibly release of energy. And that's very much what this fourth stage, I guess, of this Chanding, what we call a Chanding experience, or a surpassing of form experience. There's an incredible burst of light. We find ourselves immersed in this oneness with all things, that there's an overwhelming sense of compassion and consideration, and loving kindness just seems to burst forth from you, and you just want to share that with everything that you come in contact with. That there's this overwhelming sense of love. Love is, I still think, the best word to describe that. And you can clearly feel and sense that it transcends this physical form, that it's something much greater than what we might experience just within the confines or the limitations of this physical self. If I can have another minute or two, can I explain or share an experience I had that might help to illustrate the incredible experience of this overwhelming sense of love? And it was
Yes. I did want to pop in for a second and just note that I thought when you were talking, when we talked yesterday also, the 4 stages that you described kind of run through the recent issues of Meditation Magazine. We started with last year, we started in the spring with the health issue, which was about relaxing of the individual and becoming, enjoying the experience and the bliss and all that. And then we went to the earth issue, which I have here behind me. There it is. Which was about connecting with, the earth and expanding that sense of self outward. And then there was the universe issue, which was expanding the sense of self outward a bit more fully to encompass everything in existence. And then lastly, it comes down to love in the end, that if there's anything greater than the universe, it's love. So then we did the love issue. And I think it's a continuous path of dissolution of self, sort of like starting with the individual and then expanding the self, sort of expanding the sense of self out to everything. And then that results in this sort of love that pervades everything. So I don't know, would you say that that's sort of like analogous to the 4 stages that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that helps to illustrate it, that my experience, especially with teaching and sharing the practice, is that there's a transition that very naturally occurs in people that commit to the practice. And everything seems to be very self-focused early on. Most people come to the practice maybe from a traumatic experience or a place of darkness, and they're seeking some refuge or some release from that. But it's very I-focused. It may be something positive. I want to become an enlightened being, or I just want release from this pain or suffering. But they come into the practice very focused on what the self can gain from the practice. And then I've seen many times over and over and over, and certainly felt it within the self, where this transition occurs, where the self becomes less and less important, even insignificant. And it's, what can I give to others? What can I share? What have I gained that could benefit others, to help them through a traumatic experience in their life, to help them to find light within the darkness? And the focus becomes almost exclusively external within the context of this physical essence of self. And then there's also an even greater sense of, how can I evolve the spiritual essence of self, so that in the passing from this physical form, I can contribute to this greater good, to be a brighter light, to be an investment of this life that is meaningful and purposeful in a way far beyond just the essence of what I might consider an individual self.
Yeah. Wow. And so you were going to mention an experience that you had of this love energy.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share. And it was a very powerful experience that I was allowed to be part of, that really was life-changing in the sense of being able to experience how powerful love is. We use the word, it can be expressed very eloquently. It gets used a lot of times kind of out of context, I think, but it's such an incredibly powerful experience. And a few years ago, mentioned that I was studying under a master in Taiwan, and he does some very large and very powerful events from time to time. And a few years ago, he was going to give a teaching in Taipei Stadium, 40, 50,000 people. And he asked me if I would come and be part of the program, if I would teach and share something of my experience, my practice, something of receiving this heart imprint and how that affected my life. And I accepted the opportunity to do that. So I went in, and it was a very powerful experience in this energy, the collective energy of so many people in one place at one time, focused in this event. And then when it was over, and the crowd was starting to break up, I was introduced to a couple of gentlemen, and they said that they had just opened a meditation center further south on the island. And they asked if I could accompany them to go down and help dedicate the center and do a teaching or a sharing of practice in this new center. And I said, well, yes, absolutely. I would be honored to have that opportunity. And they said, well, it's a fairly long drive. It's going to take 3 or 4 hours to drive. And I thought, well, that'll be fine, because just kind of release from the energy rush of just being in this big stadium event, allow that energy to dissipate and start to contemplate on what I might have to share that might be of benefit or provide something worthy of helping to dedicate this new center. So there would be a time on this pleasant drive through the countryside to be able to release, relax, and prepare to provide something hopefully that would be beneficial. And then just as we were ready to leave, I was sitting in the back seat of the car, and they opened the door and they asked a young girl to sit in there. She was probably 12 or 13 years old. And there was a really strong, powerful, negative energy when she sat down, and they introduced us. And then as we started to drive, the driver told me that this young girl that was just sat down beside me, he talked about how she had a very close relationship with her mother, that they were very close, did everything together. They were really, really tightly integrated, and that her mother died yesterday very tragically, and that she's having a very difficult time dealing with that. And they thought maybe I could help her to deal with that situation. And it was incredibly overwhelming. What can I possibly say to this person that might ease their pain? And I've felt grief before. I felt very profound grief. I had the opportunity to speak at funerals or with hospice patients, and I felt that loss and that fear. But this was different. This was powerfully different. It wasn't just grief. It wasn't just a broken heart. It was a shattered heart. I mean, she was just completely shattered. And I asked if we could just take a moment to just breathe first, to just share the breath. And as we started to just do a very basic, very fundamental breathing technique, there was this overwhelming sense of peace and calm, and a sense that everything is really going to be okay. Now, this isn't coming from me, and it's not coming from her. And we both looked at each other and shared the facial expression, the eye contact, that, are you feeling that too? And there was acknowledgement that we could feel this incredible sense of nurturing, of love, of compassion, of a sense that everything's going to be okay, that you've always been loved, you're going to continue to be loved, that this doesn't go away. It's not something limited only to a physical body. It's much more powerful than that. It clearly transcends physical life, and that this spiritual essence is incredibly powerful and always with you. And as we felt that, as that sense became so powerful, I could feel her releasing, almost like that shattered heart was starting to come back together to some extent. And she started to talk. She started to share some experiences that her and her mother had had. But the sense was kind of like ocean waves. There would be a calm, and she would share an experience. And then there would be this feeling, but we won't have that again. And the grief would come in and be incredibly powerful. And then it would dissipate. Maybe she'd share a humorous anecdote and we'd laugh. And there was a sense over time that there was a calming and a settling. And there was this feeling that everything was going to be okay. And then that's when the ride was over, when we got out of the car, she looked at me and she said, I'm going to be okay. And I could feel that she was. And I have from that day expressed such a profound sense of gratitude that I was allowed to be party to that. There was nothing for me in that. There was nothing that I did other than be witness to that experience. And I believe the purpose is so that I have something to share, that when people talk about love and how powerful is it, and can it truly transcend form to formlessness to pure spirit, I have kind of a data point, an experience that I have felt that. It's undeniable. It's unquestionably incredibly powerful and clearly transcends. And from my own personal experience, I have something to share. And just the gratitude of having been able to experience that is really quite overwhelming. And I thank you for the opportunity for me to share that experience in this forum as we talk about love and compassion and how powerful this experience can be.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Miao Ming. It's, as a new father, with a 2-year-old daughter, it's so hard to imagine someone like a 12-year-old girl going through that type of experience. And to be able to bring that, to be able to bring your love and compassion into that situation, and to be able to have her know that it's going to be okay, is such a powerful outcome of your own spiritual work that you've done for yourself. And I think that that's really what we've been talking about, and what you've been talking about, that the spiritual journey often it begins for ourselves, and it begins as something that we're doing to make ourselves happier, bliss, or whatever it is, enlightenment that we're chasing. But as we continue on the path, the individual dissolves, and it just becomes about love and helping others, people around us who really need our help. So thank you so much. I think I can see all of our faces here in the Zoom call, and just everybody's became so, what's the word? It's so present and so
Yes.
powerfully moved by that story. So I want to switch us into a discussion just for the next few minutes because I know we have to wrap up soon. I'm going to switch us into an immersive view here where we can all just talk for a few minutes. And so Meow Ming, you have to turn off your green screen on Zoom. That way you won't show up like that. And there we go.
Yeah, I mean, if you are not aware of how to do that, you go in your settings and you go to background, I understand, if that's helpful.
Yeah, settings and background. And that way you will be able to.
Yeah, I'm not able to do that. And I'm not seeing a settings place
Yes.
under.
Okay, so I can switch us into a different view, or we can have a shimmering Meow Ming, like a spectral
Certainly.
spirit. Okay, I think I don't know. Are we okay with the spectral Meow Ming, or do you want to? Okay, so
Looks
let's.
pretty impressive that way.
I think so. Yeah, it's like from beyond somehow, and then there's these Chinese characters flickering in the background. So Veronica will share with you some ideas here, but I wanted to just open up for discussion right now between any of the participants, and maybe Meow Ming, you want to take a minute to figure that out. But Dr. Svoboda and Ni, did you have any thoughts or insights or feelings or things that you wanted to communicate from the discussions that we just had? Either of you can talk.
Well, I'd just like to say that I've been to Everest Base Camp 2 in 1973, and I had an interesting experience there too, because this was 73. There was nobody there. I spent the night there I was climbing with a buddy, and it was the next day. I didn't have dramatic altitude sickness, but I did. I was unwell, and it took me the entire day to get back down to 14,000 feet, and I had to walk 100 steps at a time. I would count each step, and then I would stop and pant for breath, and remember that if I actually wanted to survive, I had to get down. So that was a very dramatic and educational experience. So. Having heard Nihi speak about her experience, that definitely brought that back to mind.
Yeah, I had a similar thing with we went Giovanna, my wife, and I, we went up to the Everest Base Camp also, and we got past Namche Bazaar, but when we got to Tengboche, which is the world's highest monastery, she was having that altitude sickness, and we actually had to get helicoptered out of there. But yeah, it's interesting that strangely that all of us have had that similar experience. I think it's kind of funny.
Karmic affinities are peculiar.
Yeah, for sure. So while Meow Ming tries to fix his screen, Veronica, did you see any questions in the chat for any of the speakers? Maybe you can put them into the chat.
So there were a couple. One of the ones that came through was that someone asked, can you please re-say the name of the books? And I believe that was for Dr. Svoboda, the books that you had called out, Kevin.
Yes. So
Agora, right?
Yeah, Agora and Kundalini. Agora is Agora. That's this book. Oh, it's like, there you go.
There you go.
At the Left Hand of God. Really awesome book about Vimalananda. That's Dr. Svoboda's mentor, and wow, just the understanding how that person existed as just the Agora. I don't want to talk about it because Dr. Svoboda is here. He could talk about it, but Dr. Svoboda, can you just like describe Agora really quickly, and maybe you could even kind of tie it into how that Agora path can relate to sort of awakening.
Gora means terrible, intense, violent, hard to deal with, and Gora means taking that and making your experience of things that otherwise might be very terrible, making your experience non-terrible. So conventionally, Agoris meditate in cremation grounds and drink blood out of skulls and cook their food in skulls and take intoxicants and work with spirits and do all kinds of things like that. Not for the purpose, I mean, and many people who get into that kind of practice eventually get kind of distracted by it and end up doing things that are not so beneficial to them. And this is why this is not suggested to most people. But for people who have the karmic affinity for this sort of thing, it's a very powerful way to transform your awareness.
It's a very powerful books, and just the idea of going into like very extreme kind of situations, you know, like you mentioned, kind of meditating in the graveyards and things like that, where things are very extreme, and facing these really intense situations to be, in order to be able to be still or be in practicing in those situations, reminds me very much of like the whole idea of equanimity and non-judgmental awareness that you see in the Buddhist paths, where you can be in no matter what situation you're in, you can be undisturbed. A very similar outcome, but different methods, you know. Yeah.
Precisely. It's all a matter about samatha, equanimity, no matter what's going on, no matter in what context, trying always to maintain.
Yes. Oh, wow. I think that Miao Ming got a pretty cool setup going on now. He looks like he's got some kind of background, but it's still blending into the mountainscape. So yeah, Miao Ming, did you have any thoughts or insights for the other two speakers that we were just talking about?
I think just these paths, I've spent much of my life before I really settled into teaching from this Heart Chan perspective, exploring so many different perspectives, world religions and Buddhism and Taoism, and from very different perspectives, studying theology, and always searching for the common denominator. And I found that when both of the other speakers were speaking, that there were very clear parallels to what I've experienced in my journey, what I've experienced and shared in my teachings, that there's a wonderful commonality of these key fundamental truths that we uncover. The perspectives might be different, the terminology might be different, but those underlying fundamentals, there's many different paths that we can discover these, and I think they're all equally valid, you know, regardless of the perspective, the practice, how we might embrace this journey. All of us that are on these various paths share a very common sense of growth and evolution of self, to the point where we become something different than when we started this journey, ideally something better. And I see and feel that very strongly, both from the first sessions and in the second panel, that there's a wonderful commonality of love and truth that permeates each of these practices. And it's just a wonderful experience to have the opportunity to share this with each of you. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think, yeah, Ni, you said it, I think earlier, about it being sort of all about love, right? You know, it's, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to share now before we wrap up?
I think Ming and Dr. Svoboda just summed it up so nicely. I just feel so grateful just to be here to listen to everybody, like just being a sponge. And like Miao Ming said, like seeing this like common denominator, right? The interconnectedness of all of us and of everything. And yeah, I think this is just so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, so as part of my the new book that I'm publishing with Waterside soon, it's called Practical Guide to Spiritual Awakening. We are like, I kind of really went into all these different paths, interviewing gurus for many years, over a decade, from different paths, and seeing how things overlapped and differed and things like that. And when I originally started, I made this documentary series called Paths Up the Mountain, which was based on Ikkyu's poem, Many Paths Lead from the Foot of the Mountain, but at the top we all gaze at the same bright moon, you know. And I had kind of interpreted in my head and misstated it as the many paths lead up the mountain, but at the top, but they all lead to the same peak. So I kind of thought, okay, yeah, all these paths kind of lead to the same kind of peak experience. But as I explored and talked to different people, some people were more focused and more emphasizing the love. Some people were more emphasizing the oneness. Some people were more emphasizing the present moment awareness. And I got really confused. But then I went back to the poem, Ikkyu's poem, and it's not that all the paths up the mountain lead to the same peak. We all have different experiences. We're all different humans. And every one of us is unique. But at the top, we all gaze at the same bright moon. That is, we all gaze at the same fundamental reality that we're all experiencing. However we're experiencing it, we're all experiencing the same reality, and all these aspects like love and oneness and all that, all the energies and everything. It's all part of this reality that we're all experiencing. So while we all have our own unique experiences, it's really all within this beautiful reality that includes all of these really beautiful things. And I think that if we really meditate on it and really are here with it, we can feel that reality is just permeated with love and beauty and bliss and light. And I hope that through this summit that we've all just been through, that we can all connect to that reality more deeply and understand it a little bit, but really just connect with it as much as we can. And I thank you all so much for being here. It's been a pleasure and honor to talk to all of you. And we're gonna just move into a little recap with me and Dr. Kim at the end of this. So thank you all so much for being here. And I hope that you have a beautiful day. As Dr. Svoboda says, I wish you a day in contact with the supreme reality. It's a beautiful way of wrapping things up. Thank you so much for being here, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, so going back into speaker view, and am I the speaker that's showing up now? Yes, okay, I am. Okay, so Dr. Kim, do you want to wrap this up with me? We can just kind of recap what we heard today and what we experienced today.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so do you want to start? Because I'm just kind of coming off this.
Yes, I know, I hear you, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I actually think that at the end of that panel, that it was beautifully said. Isn't it interesting that we can have so many different individuals here, right? All with our unique stories. I feel like there's a repetition here, but I can't stop acknowledging it, as you did, Miao Ming. On the other panel, of course, Dr. Svoboda, me, you just said the same. I think the number one takeaway is exactly that. One way of understanding that in the Korean language is Chunjiin, which means sky, earth, human. And that is the universe. And we are all connected in that. And earlier I heard you say, Kevin, it's almost a beautiful thing, the microcosm, the microcosm to the macrocosm. And if we look and realize that truly it all comes down to connection and love. And I actually really, really love that we called out on the second panel, because I had my chance with the first. What I heard us say is oftentimes we have to start within ourselves. It always has to come from within. Because we cannot take care of ourselves, if we cannot connect within ourselves, it is impossible to be able to share that with others. So number one, we have to reflect inside, become aware of ourselves, connect within ourselves. And from there, we are able to realize that we are part always, no matter what we are going through, to each other and to the universe around us. And no matter what our beliefs, it does not matter what religion you are, what gender you are, what ethnicity you are, all of the things, what age you are, we are all connected. We are all human. And if every single person could start to look at, I loved that word before, the commonalities, the root of where we all come from. In the end, we can find peace. We can find calm. We can understand that there are so many tools that our teachers, whether they are directly ours, as in my lineage, your lineage, but all of the people who came before us who truly dedicated their lives to understanding the way all this works, that we can balance with life, That is exactly what we are doing now. And that is exactly what, so long as human beings exist on this earth, they will continue to do. And what a beautiful thing. It's very, very moving. I'm very grateful to be here. And as we always have to just remember, it is that balance. We cannot avoid anything in life. We are going to have challenges, hard moments, but if we can learn to balance with them, we will not be knocked down. And we always can remember, at the very least, this time we have together to remind us that we are never alone. So I'm really grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kim, for that beautiful wrap up. And yeah, no, it's hard to like, so there's so much that's been said, so it's hard to summarize. So for me, it's really just all of these beautiful people sharing their experiences, their life journeys, and their spiritual journeys, their awakening experiences, seeing the ways that they're unique and the ways that they're similar. It's so fascinating to me. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are watching this right now that are wondering, you know, how can I experience this? And we talked a little bit about who is the one that experiences it. Is it the individual or the universe or whatever it is? But from our perspective as individuals, we have to start somewhere. We have to start where we're at. So how can people start going down this path if they're interested? We don't want to say, hey, you have to start having like a really dark catalyzing experience. You have to go into some real darkness right now. Let's just start with, you know, spiritual practices like meditation can really help. Kundalini yoga can help for some people. You can check out Miao Ming's Heart Chan organization, which sounds really wonderful and beautiful. They have spiritual centers around the United States. I think the main one is in Georgia. That's where you're at, right, Miao Ming? And yeah, it's Heart Chan, so Heart Chan. You can read powerful books about individuals that go through really intense experiences in order to develop their spiritual nature, like Agora from Dr. Spoboda. You can check out people like Ni on Instagram, not Instagram, on Insight Timer, where she has some really beautiful meditations. And Dr. Kim, you have that book, Myung-Sung.
Myung-Sung, the Korean Art of Living Meditation, where meditation becomes a part of our every moment.
Yeah. So and my new book that's really very focused on all of this, on the awakening and all that, a practical guide to spiritual awakening. All of these are really great places to start, and you can check out the YouTube channels of all of the speakers that were in the first session as well. And I'll send out all of the links and stuff in the Facebook group and also on email. So if anybody is interested, they can find all of those things. I think that's a good place to wrap up. Does anybody have any closing remarks or closing thoughts that we should wrap up with? Or are we good to wrap up now?
I think we're good.
I think we're good. Okay, thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate you. It's I know 3 hours event is a really long event. So I appreciate you for your time and attention, and for everyone who came to speak, for your wisdom and your beautiful sharing of your own paths and your own insights and wisdom. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Have a beautiful day. Take care.